wisdom from above, to direct and guide us with all our consultations, and grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudice, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the peace of true religion and justice, the safety and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Morning, members. The sitting of the Honorable Senate for Friday, July 8th, is called to order, and I ask the members of the Senate to look at the gallery where we have 45 students and there are 7 teachers along with them. Could we ask the teachers to stand, please? And the coordinator of the program, Miss Anne-Marie Collins, and I'm going to tell you about the program now. The program is one which is sponsored and operated by the National Housing Trust, and it's referred to as the after-school program. So welcome to the Senate of Jamaica, teachers and students, and you're always welcome to come and spend some time with us. Fortunately for you, the sitting today will not be very long, so I don't think the kids will get too restless. But welcome again, and thank you very much for thinking about coming to your parliament when I know you had many other options to do during your summertime. So we thank you very much for thinking about us and coming down. Before we begin the business of the day, we woke this morning to the appalling news of the assassination of former Prime Minister of Japan, Abe, longest serving Prime Minister in the history of Japan, and someone who visited Jamaica in 2015, and certainly someone who we consider to be a friend of Jamaica. I'm just going to ask Minister Johnson Smith to say a few words, and I think Senator Morris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, it is indeed a sad morning for Jamaica. Indeed, the government and people of Jamaica do stand with the government and people of Japan at this time of mourning. Certainly, former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was a friend of Jamaica, indeed a friend of small island developing states in general and the region. Not only was he the longest serving Prime Minister in Japan's history, but he, during his tenure, increased significantly the visibility, the stature, and the engagement of Japan on the international stage. He deepened Japan's, the regard within which Japan was held internationally on matters of international peace and security, as well as UN security reform, and indeed a strong support for multilateralism and for sustainable development. And in this regard, that is the area of sustainable development, he was a particular friend of small island developing states such as Jamaica. Prime Minister Abe led a cabinet which promulgated the first Japan Caricom policy, and he attended the first Japan Caricom summit in 2014 in Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, it was in the following year that he visited Jamaica at the invitation of Prime Minister Simpson Miller. And it was in the following year, 2016, that I paid my first official visit to Japan at the invitation of the government of Japan, meeting now Prime Minister Kishida, who was then Foreign Minister Kishida, and speaking at the Women's World Assembly. The World Assembly of Women was in fact an initiative of Prime Minister Abe, and it was a part of his vision that Japan should be a society in which women shine. That was his motto, that Japan should be a society within which women shine. So he conceptualized this World Assembly of Women, where women leaders internationally were invited to Japan to speak with Japanese women leaders in politics, in private sector, and at the local government level to discuss ways in which women could be more economically empowered in Japan. So it was my honor to meet Prime Minister Abe in that context, as he invited the international speakers to dinner on the eve of the conference commencement. His engagement was warm, his understanding of global issues always impressive, and indeed his appreciation of Jamaican sports and music is always at the forefront of his mind. Indeed, when he invited Prime Minister Holness on his official visit in 2019, this was present throughout the entirety of the visit. And Prime Minister, in his social media post this morning, has not only shared his own shock and sadness, but he shared some images from the visit where Prime Minister Abe had personally requested that a Japanese reggae sound system be present for the final event of the Jamaican visit. They're a sound system called the Mighty Crown, and they have in fact been recognized by our own JARIA because of their global reach. And indeed, when we're told that when the sound system started to play Coffee's Toast, and Prime Minister went to greet them, Prime Minister Abe joined him in not only greeting the sound system, but in dancing and enjoying the evening, which reminded us, of course, of his exploits on the dance floor with Prime Minister Simpson Miller when he was here in Jamaica, an event which he also recounted to me personally in the margins of the UN. I must say, Mr. President, that when I say that Japan has been a true friend to Jamaica, and indeed Prime Minister Abe was, I must mention the support which they have given to our security measures by providing at that 2019 meeting a pledge for 4 patrol vehicles, 2 of which I know have already arrived, and 2 more are scheduled to arrive this year if they have not yet. Their support for our health systems, having provided a significant sum of value in equipment to support our health system through COVID and beyond. Their support for disaster risk response and management, which has been consistent, as Japan has always recognized that small island developing states have a particular vulnerability. And even when the OECD graduated Jamaica and other small island states that were still highly indebted and indicated that they were no longer eligible for overseas development assistance, Japan remained consistent and under Prime Minister Abe's leadership continued to provide grant funding. Japan is, in fact, one of our largest bilateral grant funding donors. It is a matter of significant appreciation and demonstration of friendship that goes, as we know, beyond sports and music into into these substantive, economic areas of support. So Jamaica has lost a friend, although, of course, Jamaica and Japan will continue to have strong, enduring relations. Former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will rest strong in our memories. We convey our sincere sympathies to his wife, to their family, and indeed to the government and people of Japan as they mourn. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. Senator Morris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, to join on behalf of the opposition to express our deep shock and regret at this cowardly act that has been committed to one who the world can regard as a friend to humanity. And Mr. President, I have the distinct honor of meeting former Prime Minister Abe in 2015 when he came to visit Jamaica at the invitation of the government led by Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller. And it was at a time, Mr. President, when we had embarked on the economic recovery program, and the world was responding to the amazing progress that was being made by the government of Jamaica in light of the stringency of the IMF program that was being implemented. And as a part of the endorsement and support for the government, a number of world leaders visited Jamaica in 2015, and included in that grouping was Prime Minister Abe. I had the opportunity of speaking with him in my capacity as President of the Senate and a part of the delegation that met him at the airport. And one of the things that I can echo, Minister, is what you said about his absolute, how impressed he was with Jamaican music and Jamaican sports, Jamaican culture in general. And, you know, he was even more impressed by what we were doing to take on the challenges of the economic problems that we were experiencing. You know, he served an extraordinarily long time as Prime Minister of Japan and was responsible for establishing a long period of peace, economic growth, and prosperity in Japan. And that is why it came so shocking to me as to really what would have triggered this. I know that the job of a politician is a hazardous one, and, you know, we can't forever put down our guards, no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the situation. And I am going to be watching and listening as to what are the developments taking place around this particular case, because, you know, to have served so long as Prime Minister of Japan meant that he was loved and respected by the Japanese people. And so, you know, Mr. President, we are deeply shocked on this side, and we are regretful of what has taken place. Japan is one of our longest serving international partners. We have established diplomatic relationship with Japan from 1964, and you know, they have been extremely good friends of Jamaica. And you know, I've always in my intervention speak about what happens where persons with disabilities are concerned, and I know for a fact that the bilateral programs that Minister spoke about have benefited persons with disabilities because they have one of the largest small grants program for grassroots organizations of which persons with disabilities have benefited. So, you know, his work and the work of his country has impacted on Jamaica, and we on the side of the opposition want to extend our profound regrets and sadness at his passing, and to his family we offer our prayers. May it please you, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you very much. I also had the pleasure of meeting him in 2019. So it's someone I think that has touched the lives of many of us in the Senate in one way or the other. Inevitably, the government of Jamaica will convey the sadness of the government and the people of Jamaica to the government of Japan. But in the interim, I would ask that the clerk write to the Japanese ambassador here and convey to him the fact that we had discussed this matter this morning, and also send a copy of the relevant Hansard recording to His Excellency, the Japanese ambassador here. Statements by ministers. Announcements.
The clerk laid on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Bauxite Production Levy Act, Capital Development Fund, Withdrawal Number 1, Order 2022 and Resolution. The Economic and Social Survey, Jamaica 2021. The Land Divestment Annual Report 2020-2021. The Kingston Container Terminal Services Limited Annual Report and Audited Financial Statements for the financial year 2016-2017. The Development Bank of Jamaica Annual Report and Audited Financial Statements for the financial year 2018-2019. The Universal Services Fund Annual Report for the financial year 2020-2021. The Integrity Commission Annual Report for the financial year 2021-2022. The General Consumption Tax Amendments of Schedules Number 2 Order 2022 and Resolution under the General Consumption Tax Act. Report of the Regulations Committee of the Honorable Senate on its deliberations on the Hire Purchase Amendment Regulations 2022. The National Housing Trust Housing Benefits Special Selection Windcrest Hills Housing Development Order 2022. The National Housing Trust Housing Benefits Special Selection Twickenham Glades Housing Development Order 2022. The Road Traffic Act, the Road Traffic Regulations 2022 and its resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Bills brought from the Honorable House of Representatives.
The following is a message from the Speaker of the House of Representatives to the Honorable Senate. I have the honor to advise the Honorable Senate that on the 5th day of July 2022, a bill entitled An act to amend the Road Traffic Act 2018 was passed in the House of Representatives. Marissa Darimple Philibert, CD MP, Speaker of the House of Representatives, July 8, 2022.
Mr. President, I signify my willingness to take charge of the bill, and I beg to give further notice of second reading of the bill.
A bill shortly entitled the Road Traffic Amendment Act 2022 read a first time.
Mr. President, I beg to give further notice that at a later stage today, actually no, yes, I will move for suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take second reading of the bill. Second reading of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally. Senator.
Mr. President, the reports from committees.
Sir, I recommit reports from committees. Those in favor? Thank you. Senator Ransford Bram, you are recognized. Reports from committees.
Mr. President, I beg to lay on the table of the Senate a copy of the report of the Regulations Committee of the Senate on the Hire Purchase Amendment Regulations 2022 under the Hire Purchase Act.
Thank you, Senator Bram. Notices of motions given orally.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the Senate, I will move the following motion. Be it resolved that this Honourable Senate appoint a select committee comprising the following senators: Senator Aubin Hill, Senator Caban Gale, Senator Don Webby, Senator Shireen Golding Campbell, Senator Sophia Fraser-Binns, Senator Janice Allen, to sit jointly with a similar committee appointed by the House of Representatives to carry out the statutory review of the Insolvency Act. Mr. President, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today I will move for suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take that motion. I also beg to give notice, Mr. President, that at the next meeting of the Senate I will move the following motions. Be it resolved that the National Housing Trust Housing Benefits Special Selection Twickenham Glades Housing Development Order 2022 under the National Housing Trust Act, which were laid on the table of the Senate on the 8th day of July 2022, be referred to the Regulations Committee of the Senate for consideration and report. And be it resolved that the National Housing Trust Housing Benefits Special Selection Windcrest Hills Housing Development Order 2022 under the National Housing Trust Act, which were laid on the table of the Senate on the 8th day of July 2022, be referred to the Regulations Committee of the Senate for consideration and report. And I beg to give notice, Mr. President, that at a later stage today I will move for the suspension of standing orders to allow me to take these motions. Mr. President, I also beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the Senate I will move the following motion: the Road Traffic Act, the Road Traffic Regulations 2022 Resolution. Whereas Section 110 of the Road Traffic Act, hereinafter referred to as the Act, provides that the Minister may make regulations generally for giving effect to the Act, and whereas subsections 3 and 4 of Section 110 of the Act, respectively, provides that A, regulations made in relation to tests to be taken for driver's licenses or certain specified alternatives to such tests, and B, regulations which provide for a custodial sentence shall be subject to affirmative resolution. And whereas the Minister responsible for transport on the 7th day of June 2022 made the Road Traffic Regulations 2022, and whereas it is desirable that the Road Traffic Regulations 2022 be affirmed, now therefore be it resolved by this Honourable House as follows. 1. This resolution may be cited as the Road Traffic Regulations 2022 resolution. 2. The Road Traffic Regulations 2022, which were laid on the table of the Senate on the 8th day of July 2022, are hereby affirmed.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bram.
Mr. President, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the Senate, I will move the following motion. Be it resolved that the report of the Regulations Committee of the Senate on the Hire Purchase Amendment Regulation 2022 under the Hire Purchase Act, which was laid on the table of the Senate on the 8th day of July, be approved. Mr. President, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Questions and answers to questions. Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to the sitting of the Senate. Motions for leave to introduce bills. The presentation of bills without the leave of the Senate first obtained. Public business.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I now move for the suspension of standing orders to enable me to take the motions, notice of which I gave earlier, and in particular, the two motions in respect of the National Housing Trust Benefits Act, orders, and the motion in respect of the establishment of the Joint Select Committee to review the Insolvency Act.
Thank you very much. Members would have heard the Minister. Those in favour? Against? Minister? Senator Brown?
Sorry. Yeah, fine. Mr. President, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders, yes, to enable me to take the motion of which I gave notice earlier.
You should have heard. Those in favour? Thank you very much. Senator Brown?
Very well. Mr. President, the Hire Purchase Amendment Regulations 2022 under the Hire Purchase Act were laid on the table of the Senate on the 17th of June 2022 and were referred to the Senate Regulations Committee. The committee met on the 7th of July 2022 to consider and report on the regulations. The committee heard representatives of the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Mr. President, these regulations are amending the 1974 regulations to remove a reference to Part 3 of the Act, which was repealed by the Security Interest in Personal Property Act, but was not consequently removed from the regulations. Similarly, Mr. President, Regulation 6 became obsolete in light of the Act and is now repealed by these regulations. The other regulations represents an updating or modernizing of the regulations by updating fees, references to judge of the parish court instead of the resident magistrate court, and regularizing the relevant forms. And that, Mr. President, is to change 19 to 2020 so that it will easily to be added the year. And after careful considerations and deliberations, Mr. President, the committee had no objection to the regulations as tabled. Accordingly, I ask that the report regarding the foregoing be approved by this Honorable Senate. Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you very much. Proceed.
On this side, we have no objections to the proposed amendments to the regulations. In fact, my comments and intervention will be as brief as the meeting that was held to consider same. The fact is that the amendments that were made or proposed were based on some omissions, as Senator just mentioned, the chairman, omissions or oversight. And it really just underscores the importance of when we do make these reviews that we are very thorough and detailed so as to prevent us from having short additional meetings to review what could have been addressed at the time. So it is incumbent on us when we make these changes that we take our time and get it done right, so we do not have to retrace our steps. but it is understood and appreciated based on the presentation made by the ministry. The changes that were made were necessary to be made in order to make the necessary effect to the regulations. So, of course, we support it without reservation and look forward to them coming into force. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Brown? Senator Brown, before you start, may I just say what a pleasure it is to see you. I know you were off for a couple of weeks. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a difficult period, but it's also a pleasure to see everybody in the chamber. I just note that there's 6 members on the committee, and I note that only 3 members have signed. Assuming my friend, the chairman, will add his signature to the document and making it a majority who support the regulation. And on that basis, I also support it. But I just hope that we could just move it beyond the 3 members.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown. Senator Brown?
Mr. President, all the members were in fact present, but as you see, the meeting was held yesterday in order to meet the timetable today, and the opportunity to sign was not available. However, the decision of the committee was unanimous, and it was shortly done, Mr. President. I had to find time to try to extend it for an hour, but it was unanimous, and it is a relatively simple amendment, and I think that we can feel assured that it will correct an should I use another word then, a discrepancy, my Lord, Mr. President. And in the...
You just say, my Lord? I will work with that, you know.
Very well, very well. So I would ask, Mr. President, if you will put the motion in as you see fit.
Thank you very much, Senator Brown. The question is that the motion, notice of which was given earlier, be approved. Those in favor? Against? Minister?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I also now ask that the motions of which I gave notice earlier, the ones for which standing orders were suspended, that those too be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members would have heard the motion. Those in favor? Against?
Mr. President, we find ourselves at a point where there is no further business to be conducted today. Unless it is. You know, I can always find business to be done. So, and in fact, we happen to have business that could be done. But the truth is, Mr. President, that we have placed before us today the long-awaited Road Traffic Regulations 2022, which I know members share my sentiment in receiving these regulations today for tabling. This chamber considered passed the Act in 2018 and had anticipated that these regulations would come in short order, and they took very much longer than we had anticipated. So we welcome them. We look forward to reviewing them, to ensuring that they accord with the requirements, but we trust that the extensive time that has been taken to promulgate these regulations has ensured that they are in fact ready for us to be taken. They have been adopted in that other place, together with the further amendments to the Road Traffic Act, which have been tabled before us today as well. And I do hope, therefore, that we will be able to take them in relatively short order, as this chamber would not wish to be a chamber that would contribute to the undue delay in the coming into effect of these regulations and the Act.
When would you expect that we would take these?
Mr. President, I would hope that we would be able to take both, if not next week, the following. I think 2 weeks to review, to have the time to review the regulations is sufficient, given that they have had substantive work done on them, and we would just take the amendment at the same time. Unless it is that in discussions with the minister, he would wish me to take the Act before. So that is what we anticipate, Mr. President, on this side.
Mr. President, while we too welcome the regulations, given the substantial nature and the amount of pages of regulations, I think for us to discharge our responsibilities, I would ask for a little more than a week.
Yeah, well,
perhaps 2 weeks.
You don't need my intervention in that. No doubt between yourself and the leader you would come to some viable arrangement. So the question is? The question is
that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just before I do that, I just ask members to recognize the absence of Ms. Curtis, who is on personal business overseas, and recognize that today is the first day that the Deputy Clerk, acting Ms. Colleen Lowe, had conduct of the clerk's duties in the Senate. So we are looking forward to a long, or I have no doubt that you are looking forward to a long career in the Senate, and I just welcome again and say that we appreciate the effort and time that you are putting in and the responsible approach that you have taken to your work thus far. This Honourable Senate now adjourns for a date to be fixed.
What, sir?
You are on the insolvency?
Yes, sir. Myself and Janice.
You are Janice?
Yes, sir. No, I'm saying unless Peter wants...
Here's how we sign the alphabet.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X,
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Let's be clear. Tobacco use is associated with several cancers, lung and heart-related diseases. Smoking harms nearly every organ in the human body and contributes to impotence, impaired vision, bad breath, discolored fingernails, and teeth. E-cigarettes, e-cigs, or electronic nicotine delivery systems, ENDS, can be just as harmful. Many of the e-liquids in e-cigarettes contain nicotine, which is addictive and toxic. Nicotine use can also disrupt adolescent brain development. Early use of e-cigarettes also increases the likelihood of tobacco addiction in later years and can result in a graduation to even more dangerous substances. Besides nicotine, some e-cigarettes contain other harmful substances, including heavy metals like lead, volatile organic compounds, cancer-causing chemicals, and tiny particles that penetrate deep into the lungs. E-cigs, whether they contain nicotine or not, can also cause injuries from fires and explosions from batteries. Children and adults have been poisoned by swallowing, breathing, or absorbing e-cigarette liquid through their skin or eyes. The proposed Tobacco Control Act seeks to protect Jamaica's youth from use and exposure to tobacco smoke, nicotine, and other harmful substances. Let us give the next generation a chance to live and breathe easily. I am Denise Bingham, and I'm from the National Council on Drug Abuse.
Caribbean. This morning, July 1st, 2022, I am coming to you live from Midtown Paramaribo, Suriname, where the morning rush is filled with additional zest. Today marks an auspicious date as we commemorate the abolition of slavery in Suriname and we celebrate emancipation since 1863 during a public holiday known as Kitty Kotti, a phrase meaning broken chains. It becomes particularly significant then to reflect on the fact that 159 years later, we are coming together to prepare for the 43rd Caricom Conference of Heads of Government, evincing how deeply we are rooted in the process of our own sovereignty, development, and regional integration. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Business and International Cooperation of the Republic of Suriname, His Excellency Albert Ramdien, has the honor of leading the organization for this conference. My co-presenter, Kimberly Ramkalawan, spoke with the Minister to understand the full scope of the preparations and what we can expect from the 43rd Conference of Heads of Government.
Good day and welcome to Good Morning Caribbean. Today I have with me the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Business and International Cooperation of Suriname, Mr. Albert Ramdien. Welcome and thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us here in Suriname.
Absolutely, and we look forward to next week when we have all the Caribbean in Suriname.
Right. So tell me a bit about this year. This year we have the 43rd CARICOM Heads of Government meeting here taking place in Suriname with President Santokhi taking over the chairmanship. Tell me a bit about the significance of Suriname hosting this year's conference, in particular to what you all would like seen done.
Yes, it's an important meeting, and not only because it's all the CARICOM leaders who will be present here, but it's really the first time the conference will take place after the COVID-19 pandemic. We met earlier this year in Belize in the intersessional meeting, but I believe that this one, the conference has also a little bit more of a heavier agenda. So it's great to have all the leaders coming to Suriname. It's one of the countries some of the leaders have not visited, so that makes it an extra gives it an extra dimension. We have also new leaders who just were recently elected, Bahamas, St. Lucia, and also recently Grenada. All of them will be here. So for us, the significance is that for a country on the northwestern coast of South America, not part of the islands in the Caribbean, that we can hold the conference. It's also happening for the first time. So in that sense, also historic. President Santokhi has participated actively in the period that he was the incoming chair. So he is ready to go for the position of chairman of CARICOM. And in the discussions we had so far, a couple of issues came across which are relevant. One of them is the strengthening of unity and collaborative cooperation within the region, especially in the area of CSME, the single market and economy, taking away all the barriers, the non-tariff barriers, which are needed to strengthen our local, and with local I mean the Caribbean economy. And that is significant in the context of post-COVID recovery, but also in the context of the global challenges which we face. And that's the second topic which I think will draw a lot of attention. So the single market economy, the rebuilding of our economies, the issue of financing for development, but also climate financing. And then we always speak about security and the impact of insecurity in the region. So that will be on the agenda. And of course, energy, where Trinidad is providing leadership in the portfolio as a portfolio holder for the energy security. That will be on the agenda as well. We expect strong discussions, but also new directions to come out of this. It's important that the Caribbean community understands that the world is changing, and we with that as well. It has an impact. The war in Ukraine has an impact on our prices, on our livelihood, but also we need to get used to trying to be cautious here. We have to get used to the new circumstances
in this region. Suriname and Guyana becoming new oil and gas producers. That will change a little bit the face of the Caribbean integration process. So all these things will come up, and I hope for a lively debate, a meaningful debate, and that we can come out of this meeting with strong commitment of all political leaders to the unity, the integration, but also stronger collaboration among each others.
So President Santoki leads a quasi-cabinet on industry. You've listed quite numerous topics of interest. Tell me a bit about how all of that ties into what you are leading on the industry front.
Yeah, so in Belize, when we were there for the Intersessional, this discussion already started on a new way of dealing with Caribbean economy and the recovery. And one of the things was noticed and observed there very strongly is that we pay attention to all sectors in our economies: food, agricultural food policy, which is led by Guyana. We deal with energy, which is led by Trinidad and Tobago. We deal with the single market and economy, which is led by Barbados. But one of the sectors, critical sectors in the economy, which we need to address and become much stronger in, is industrial policy. It's part of the Treaty of Chaguaramas, but it was never implemented or followed up on. So at that meeting, the proposal was made that Suriname would take the lead on industrial policy development in the region. And the reason why it's so important now is that what we have learned from the COVID-19 crisis, but also with the climate change issues, is that we need to make sure that our own economies become a little bit more independent from supplies from all over the world. In terms of pharmaceuticals, for instance, the COVID-19 clearly demonstrated that we were at the back end of supplies for different reasons. We don't want that to happen again. So that there is an industry that can be developed. Food supplies. The Caribbean imports for more than $6 billion in food supplies. Agriculture produce, vegetables, fruits, meat, and so on. A large part of that can be supplied through processing, industrial processing, by Suriname, Guyana, and Belize, because we have land. So out of this, a lot of new initiatives are being proposed, like agriculture production in Suriname and Guyana, and then processed in Barbados for the supply of the whole region, and even export beyond the Caribbean market. And these are the things which will create a sustainable structural economy, where we will not be dependent on others, but at the same time providing jobs, economic securities, income, and I think that is something which is going to be critical for the future of the region.
Now, this year's conference, you all also welcome a lot of numerous guests outside of Caricom. Tell me a bit about who we can expect visiting this year's meeting, participating.
So apart from the 15 leaders, the 15 member states of Caricom which are invited, of which out of the 15, I believe 14 will be here at the highest level with their Prime Minister and President. We have invited the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, who will be arriving on Saturday, and we'll have a very much focused program on the environment. We'll have a discussion on Sunday with the leaders. We have also the Secretary General of the OACPS, that's the African, Caribbean, Pacific countries, who is based in Brussels, and who will speak about the relationship with Europe, but also in terms of the post-Cotonou agreement. And then the Secretary General of the Association of Caribbean States will be also attending this conference. These are important regional organizations which create a scope for regional cooperation, multilateral cooperation. We will also receive the Minister of State of Saudi Arabia, who will have also on the 4th of July an encounter with the heads of government of the Caribbean. So it will be quite busy because there is a hectic agenda. We have some social events as well. Tree planting by all the Caribbean leaders to commemorate the start of the 50th anniversary is one of them. And there is the 10K road race on Sunday. We have the traditional walk we call it a walk of 1 mile for the leaders themselves. And then, of course, there is a lot of culture and opening, the conference of the OCC award on Sunday to 4 prominent Caribbean personalities. So it will be a hectic program in a very short time frame, but we believe that with all these guests from within Caricom, from outside the region, we believe that we can at least have substantive discussions about the future of the Caribbean and for improving the life of the people of the Caribbean.
A lot of what's been on the agenda at most conferences, especially post COP26, has been climate change. I know you would have touched on it earlier as we spoke. Can you give us an idea what Suriname would like seen done? A lot of focus has been done on the importance of the Amazon.
Yes. President Santoki is someone who likes the debate and the analysis, but in the end what we like is action, and decision making going forward. So there will be a need, and I take the liberty to say this without putting anybody on a little bit on the spot here, but there will be a need for leaders to engage very openly, frankly, about issues and make decisions. And that will be the benefit of this conference, to have decisions that will go a long way in terms of all the follow-up that needs to be done. For instance, on climate change. We know all what the problem is. We experience it in Suriname with floods currently, as you may have noticed. The rainfall continues while we skip the dry season. That's all climate change. There is a climate crisis. So climate financing, for us to be able to adapt or mitigate the impact of climate change, must be high on the agenda. What we see, all kinds of noble objectives and aspirations, but when you look for where is the assistance then to support countries in overcoming those challenges, it becomes very difficult. So we have to be very clear about it, that the mechanisms, the financial instruments which are now in place are not sufficient. Are not sufficient because the Caribbean doesn't benefit from it, while the Caribbean is one of the regions mostly impacted by climate crisis. Look, Suriname is for more than 90% forested. High forestation, low deforestation. So we contribute to oxygen production. We are a sink for carbon emissions, but we don't benefit from that. We don't get compensated for that. So we have to talk about all these new instruments which need to come in place to facilitate the development of the country without jeopardizing the environment. And these are the decisions we need to make and express those very strongly at the upcoming COP27 summit in Egypt. That's only on climate change. But when we speak about financing for development, eligibility criteria, we are considered an MDC, a middle income country, while if you look at our debt ratio, we are not. But because of that ranking, that categorization by the World Bank and the IMF, we are not eligible for certain financial instruments worldwide. It's a disadvantage. So we need to talk about these things and express that view very strongly. And one place to do it is when President Santoki will represent the region at the G20 summit, which will be held in November in Bali in Indonesia. It's a great gesture, I would say, from the Indonesian chair to invite Caricom, in the person of the chairman of Caricom, to Bali to express our views on the financial infrastructure in the world at a global level. But these are the issues, the ranking, the eligibility criteria, that's on financing. But there is a lot of work to be done within our own region, which I indicated before. The single market and economy has to become a real single market and economy. Too many barriers. Yesterday I had a very productive and good conversation with a delegation from TTMA currently in Paramaribo with 23 business persons. And we discussed the same things there, is we need to get rid of the non-tariff barriers so that we can do business. So we see that it's growing, but leaders will need to provide some more guidance and make decisions on these things. And these are sometimes difficult decisions because the national circumstances play a role. But if we want to be a region, we'll need to demonstrate that we are a region.
Definitely. Now, Suriname also comes on the heels of hosting the Oil and Gas Summit this week. And a lot of what's on everyone's mind is the energy crisis and oil and gas prices. Going forward into Caricom's meeting, quickly, what would you all like to see discussed and come together on representing the Caribbean, on reducing these prices and the impact that it's having on our nations?
Energy security is critical. We expect Prime Minister Rowley to come up with a view on how to tackle this issue of course, the current challenges, high fuel prices, but also the issue of gas supplies and the development of gas within the region. I think we had fruitful conversations on this matter during the Los Angeles Summit of the Americas, where we spoke about lifting the sanctions, for instance, with regard to Venezuela, so that Trinidad could utilize the gas resources there as well. I think every country in the world is scrambling for gas supplies and energy supplies. We have Guyana and Suriname now as major potential oil and gas suppliers. So one of the things in the whole issue of how we deal with energy is to combine and mobilize all the resources within the region. Trinidad and Tobago's experience in oil and gas, Guyana's availability of oil, and they've started already. We have more than 40 years experience in oil, albeit onshore, and we have Barbados also with potential gas. So these four countries can work together and must work together. And for that we need to sit down and develop a more strategic outlook on how this can happen. This is going to go not for a few years, this is going to go for decades to come. So you need political commitment, and you need the plans in place for the right investments and the right negotiating contracts with international companies. In that sense, I believe this region has great opportunities.
Thank you, Minister Ramdin, for your time with us this morning, and we look forward to seeing you a lot more during the next upcoming days.
I'll be around. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we thank you for joining us here on Good Morning Caribbean.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you, of course, His Excellency Albert Ramdin, for giving us a better idea of what to expect in the coming few days as the preparations go forth in full swing. For all of those coming into Suriname for the 43rd Caricom Conference of Heads of Government, we extend a special welcome. We wish you a thorough enjoyment of Surinamese hospitality, and more importantly, a fruitful discussion as we move forward towards strengthening our Caribbean.
Get vaccinated. Everybody get vaccinated. Good. Get back to life, get vaccinated. Good. Protect your life, get vaccinated. Good. Protect your family. Aye. Before me do road, me have to get vaccinated. Good. You do it already, you get me ratings. Good. It's free for the public, keep your savings. Good. If you not do it yet, the risk you're taking. Protect for your life in this pandemic. Good. COVID and nothing for you play with. Good. And sanitize and mask for wearing. But we move forward, we get vaccinated. If you a barber, shopkeeper, taxi driver, go get vaccinated. Good. Whether dance or church, me a preach like pastor, go get vaccinated. Good. Follow the soldier, the police, the frontline workers, and go get vaccinated. Go get vaccinated. Good. All ages, go get vaccinated. All street youth, get vaccinated. Good. Get vaccinated. Good. Everybody get vaccinated. Good. Get back to life, get vaccinated. Protect for your life, get vaccinated. Good. Good. Go get vaccinated. Good. Everybody get vaccinated. Good. Old and young get vaccinated. Protect your family, go get vaccinated. Good. Good.
Jamaica, home of the resilient, passionate and hard-working. A people and a nation who have achieved and defied all odds, working to keep their economy growing, their country thriving, from investments made in innovative opportunities and exports demanded globally. We have a vision, now within our grasp, where Jamaica becomes the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. We will not let go of this vision. We will grow. We will overcome these challenging times and look to the future with hope and positivity. These are special times. The world as we know it has changed, but home will always be in our hearts. And in Jamaica, you can always find a home. Think you know Jamaica? Look again. You will be surprised.
Good morning, Caribbean. I am Kimberly Ramkalawan, and we are coming from Paramaribo, Suriname. We are here just some time ahead of the start of the 43rd regular meeting of the heads of government of Caricom. And currently several heads of state and dignitaries are making their way to the capital city, where they are here to discuss several matters of Caribbean importance. And one of them said to be visiting Suriname is the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Here to give us an idea and discuss the UN's involvement in Caricom's heads of government meeting is UN Resident Coordinator for Suriname, Mr. Dennis Zulu. Welcome. Thanks for joining us here.
Thank you so much. My pleasure to be here.
Now tell me a bit about the agenda, Caricom's agenda, and how it's your involvement, the UN's involvement in this year's meeting meets the UN's Sustainable Development Goals.
Okay. So thank you so much for having me, and I think it's for all of us in the UN, it's a delightful day today because, as you correctly stated, the Secretary General will be visiting and participating in the Heads of State meeting. The first meeting that is participating at the heads of state level, but you might wish to know that the UN works very well and quite strategically at the programmatic and political levels with the Caricom Secretariat, but also as member states of Caricom. This one is particularly special because the Secretary General himself is coming to attend the heads of state meeting at the invitation of Caricom. So for us, it's also is important because then it illustrates and highlights the importance that the UN attaches to the relationship with Caricom.
Are there any particular areas that the UN would like to see addressed at this year's meeting with particular urgency?
Well, of course, I think the topic at the moment is that of climate change, and you can see the impact of climate change in the Caribbean. The Caribbean remains very vulnerable to the effects of climate change. In fact, only a few days ago, as you know, we had a cyclone alert. So in the UN, we've been working with Caricom member states and governments to see how we can support greater resilience at the country and the regional level, and how the region can cope with usually the devastating effects of cyclones and hurricanes, but also other issues like we had recently in St. Vincent with a volcano. So our role really and our commitment is to show that we work with Caricom to ensure that the countries become more resilient, but also to put in measures that will facilitate eco-friendly ways of production, but also eco-friendly ways of living, so that we can all live in an environment which is also very good for all of us.
Can you elaborate a little more on some of the sustainable development goals that you think are of particular interest to Suriname and even the Caribbean islands?
Well, I'll say all of them are important because they're all interlinked, right? So, for instance, if you're talking at poverty is something that we all want to address, but that's linked, that's SDG 1, that's also linked to SDG 8 on employment and economic growth, which is very important. But as you know, the Caribbean has not been doing very well in that area. because of COVID, but we also know in certain parts of the Caribbean, even prior to COVID, the economies were not doing too well. Actually, the anticipated growth rate is not that good as we sort of come out of COVID. So for us, it's important that we work with member states to see how strategies and programs can put in place to facilitate economic growth. So hopefully when we have people working, where people in livelihoods generating activities, this can also impact on their and reducing poverty levels in the Caribbean. Another very important SDG is that one on education. And you know, education has been impacted quite severely by COVID, with a lot of children not being able to go to school for up to 2 years. So how then do we ensure that we accelerate the progress towards the achievement of the SDG? You want to know that, for instance, because of COVID, all the progress that have been made has, to a great extent, been reversed because of that. So the UN, in fact, in September this year is holding a Transforming Education Summit in New York, which will bring together the member states to come and see how, working together, we can try and accelerate progress towards the attainment of the education goal. So for us, it's all the SDGs that are important, but then how do we ensure that, given the shocks that we have had in the past few years, we can work collectively and accelerate progress and regain the progress that we were making before that. But I'm also wish to mention and take the opportunity the fact that we're in Suriname, that Suriname went ahead to do a voluntary national review of the SDGs. And basically this is voluntary, and a country or a member state can decide on its own to see how well it's doing in terms of its progress towards the SDGs. And we want to commend Suriname for doing that, because that gives us a clear picture as where we should be going and where we need to improve on. And this report that Suriname did will be presented to the high-level meeting being held in New York not very far from now.
Tell me a bit about where you see the Caricom as a whole in moving forward in achieving these goals. Have they gone far? I know there's been some setback because of the pandemic, but how do you see them progressing?
Well, I mean, this is why Caricom as a collective is important, because member states can work with each other to try and learn from each other, but also collaborate. I mean, the whole essence of Caricom is regional integration. How do we benefit from a larger collection of countries? How do we learn from each other? How do we move or collaborate in certain areas so that we move towards that? So the whole principle and philosophy of having regional groupings like Caricom is really see how each one of the countries can bring something to the table so that they collectively benefit. So we see that as a great initiative, and therefore the Secretary General will be here to render the support and see how the UN can further integrate and work with Caricom.
Now, Secretary General Guterres is coming here to Suriname. Tell me a bit about the significance of this visit to the United Nations, particularly Suriname.
Well, it's very significant, as I said, because it's not very often that you see the Secretary General coming down to this part of the world. He was only recently in Barbados, which was also a very good moment for us in the UN, but now he's here in Suriname, not just to attend the summit, but also to see what's going on in terms of UN collaboration with the government and other partners in Suriname. You may wish to know that the UN only a few weeks ago signed the country implementation plan, which really is a blueprint for collaboration between the United Nations team in Suriname with the government and other partners in Suriname. So for us, that's an indication of commitment on the part of the government and the people of Suriname to partner with us in the United Nations to move forward towards the same goals we're talking about together. How do we support each other? How do we collaborate going forward?
Now, Mr. Zulu, if you can give me an idea about a bit about the schedule that Mr. Guterres will be here participating, some of the events that he will be partaking in. If you could just give us an idea of his visit, what's it going to be like?
All right. So yes, he's here to attend the heads of state meeting, so he'll be attending the official opening. But he has a fairly packed program because we also want him to see Suriname. So he'll be visiting some UN government and projects in Paramaribo and outlining areas, really to get a feel of what sort of work the UN is doing in partnership with the government and other stakeholders. So he's going to do that tomorrow, and he's also meeting the president and the senior ministers and other government officials of Suriname, really on a bilateral way to ensure that we also speak, because Suriname obviously is hosting us, so we need to thank Suriname for its generosity, but also to strengthen UN-Suriname partnerships and the relationship which we've had with Suriname for a very long time now. So he will be visiting various projects run by UN agencies, but also engaging in discussions, bilateral discussions with senior government officials and other partners that we work with in Suriname.
Thank you for sharing that with us, and we hope that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres enjoys the Caribbean warmth and he feels welcome here at Suriname.
I'm sure he will. Yeah,
thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We want to thank you for joining us here for another episode of Good Morning Caribbean.
Social distancing aims to minimize physical contact between individuals and thereby reduce the possibility for new infections. The government has implemented a number of social distancing methods. These include closure of educational institutions, a reduction in the number of persons allowed at social gatherings, reduction in the number of persons in the workplace, measures for special groups such as the elderly, patients in hospitals, and the prison. Other severe methods of social distancing are quarantines or isolation. As much as possible, stay at home. But if you must go out, maintain a social distance of 2 meters or 7 feet. Stay calm, stay informed, stay at home.
If ever there was a time to take care of your mental health, it is now.
Now, when your physical health so clearly impacts your emotional health.
Now, when we need to talk and listen to each other.
Now, when supporting each other means survival.
Now, in a time of COVID-19.
Speak up.
Speak now.
Beat COVID-19.
Call 888 New Life. 639-5433.
The Commonwealth heads of government come together. In that meeting, as well as with the meeting of the Summit of the Americas, it is clear that the entire world is convulsed in great difficulties as it relates to the volatility, the constant increase in energy prices, and the increased cost of food. It is having a generally devastating impact on economies and societies right across the world. Jamaica is no different, and we have not been spared. The impact that this has had on persons who are on fixed income, persons who are minimum wage earners, it has been significant. The government is very much aware of this, and we have been making deliberate and instrumental efforts to ensure that we are able to transfer cushioning support to those who are vulnerable and in need.
Get involved to fight climate change. Come make we engage to fight climate change. Get involved. Too much carbon dioxide a release a contribute to climate change. Severe weather and strong hurricane. Out the season rainfall and the place turn river like jokes. And it make the temperature hotter. We have to use up the sun, the wind and rivers to get cheaper and better energy. Plant more trees, preserve the forest, practice proper disposal of garbage. European Union and Jamaica are partnering for a sustainable future.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Ministry of Education and Youth for our annual press conference, releasing the information and the results for the primary exit profile exams which were done earlier this year. We want to welcome those persons who are joining us online and following us on our social media platforms. But for right now, I'd just like to introduce Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, our Permanent Secretary, and she will be welcoming you officially and then announcing the other members of the team who are here with us before the Minister makes her presentation. So over to you, Mrs. Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Steer. Good morning again, everyone. Let me formally introduce you to members of the team here and those online. So, of course, leading the team, we have Mrs. Fable Williams, Honorable Fable Williams, our Minister of Education and Youth, Dr. Kassan Troop, our Acting Chief Education Officer in the Ministry of Education, Dr. Clover Hamilton Flowers, Acting Deputy Chief Education Officer in the Curriculum and Support Services Division. She's joining us online. Mrs. Terrian Thomas Gale, our Deputy Chief Education Officer of Examinations, Assessment and Administration Services. Mrs. Winnie Berry, Acting Director Principal, National College for Educational Leadership. She's joining us online. Dr. Tamika Benjamin, our National Mathematics Coordinator and Tertiary Support Officer. Dr. Andre Hill, National Literacy Coordinator, Ministry of Education and Youth, members of the Executive Management Team, all our heads of agencies online, directors of our regional education services, members of the public, online members of the media, I welcome you all to this year's sharing of the PEP results. Over to you, Minister.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, P.S. Dwyer. Good morning, everyone. And since you already set the protocol, let me simply acknowledge you are Permanent Secretary. Let me also acknowledge our Acting Chief Education Officer, Dr. Kassan Troop, senior officers at the Ministry, members of the media, all those who are watching online as well. Good morning. I'm pleased to welcome you to this press conference for the announcement of the results of the 2022 Primary Exit Profile Assessment. As you know, the PEP assessments are intended to be administered over 3 years in grades 4, 5, and 6, with each of those years counting towards the final results. Due to the pandemic, this cohort did not sit the grade 4 PEP or the grade 5 PEP. So everything hangs on the grade 6 PEP. Again, due to the continuing pandemic, this cohort was only able to sit 2 of the 3 grade 6 components. They sat the ability test in March 2022 and the curriculum-based test, or CBT, which is an achievement test, in April 2022. This cohort also did not sit the grade 6 performance task test. And we had to go further as a result of the impact of the pandemic on learning to make adjustments in the content coverage for the achievement or the curriculum-based component of the tests, which comprises mathematics, science, social studies, and language arts. And I'm saying all of that to say that as a result, it will be difficult to compare the results of the primary exit profile over the years as the components varied due to the impact of the pandemic. In terms of the administration of the PEP 6 this year, for the ability test and curriculum-based test, students sat their examinations in 1,054 examination centers under the supervision of a presiding examiner and invigilators. Regional teams were set up to act as monitors on the days of administration to ensure the examinations were administered according to the prescribed guidelines. The presiding examiners and invigilators were trained in February 2022 by the Student Assessment Unit and regional teams to preside over the exams. For the exam period, 36,078 students, comprising 18,495 boys and 17,583 girls, were registered to sit the exams. Unfortunately, approximately 2%, or 786, of our boys and girls did not sit the exam as a result of being absent on the days the exams were administered. As you know, we're at a place in Jamaica in which every student graduating from primary school has a place in a high school. The results of the PEP exam is a significant determinant as to which high school that student will attend. Of the 35,292 students who sat the exam, only 20 students were not placed in a public school at the secondary level, and this was based on their requests. If we look in terms of student choices, students and parents are allowed to choose 7 schools and rank them from number 1 to number 7. 87% of the students, or some 30,778 students, were placed in one of their 7 choices of schools. Of those who did not get into a school of their choice, which would be 13%, or a total of 4,494, they were placed in high schools in close proximity to the primary school they attended, or in close proximity to the home address that the students would have submitted on the exam. It must be noted that a higher percentage, or 100% of our schools, are now a school of choice. Meaning in prior years there were high schools that were not chosen by any student, but this year that's not the case. As to be expected though, the demand for certain schools the demand for certain schools continues to be very high, and I'm sure Jamaicans know which schools those are. Turning now to student achievement, the primary exit profile represents a new approach in the reporting of the scores, while ensuring that the scores are aligned to the competence-based transition policy and the alternate pathways for secondary education. One of the major goals of the National Standards curriculum is to enable students to become critical, reflective thinkers, creative problem solvers, effective communicators, and natural collaborators. The primary exit profile aims to assess these skills and competencies as outlined by the National Standards curriculum. So we will say some more in terms of the reports that parents and schools will get. Parents will, and it's up on the board there, parents will get a report that looks like this. I don't know if the camera will be capturing it. Right? At the top of the report, obviously we'll have the name of the student and some other information. The important information there is the placement score. And that's the score that's used to place the students in a high school. And that score is a composite of the curriculum-based tests and the ability test. The report further breaks down in terms of the curriculum-based test. It shows the 4 subjects: mathematics, language arts, science, social studies, and it gives the scores for each of those. It is important that parents understand this report, because it also indicates what category of learning or what level of learning your child is at the moment. There are 4 levels. There's developing, there is, beginning, developing, proficient, and highly proficient. What do these mean? So a student that's ranked at the beginning stage means that the student at this level demonstrate limited or no evidence of the required competence necessary at grade 6 as specified in the National Standards Curriculum. These students will need intensive, ongoing academic support at grade 7. And this is information that this test is given to us to allow us to better target our students with support. Students that are ranked in the developing level means they demonstrate partial evidence of the required competence necessary at grade 6 level as specified in the National Standards Curriculum. These students will need some targeted academic support at grade 7 as well. And then at the proficient level, students at this level demonstrate adequate evidence of the required competence necessary at grade 6 as specified in the National Standards Curriculum. These students may need minimal academic support and or extended learning activities at grade 7. And in the highly proficient category or level, students at this level demonstrate an advanced level of competence necessary at grade 6 as specified in the National Standards Curriculum. They may need extended learning activities at grade 7, so they are performing above their level. Yes. So those are the students in that category. We're spelling this out because we want parents to understand that the exam that their child sat, it was not just to place them into high school and that's it. It also gives us good information to allow us to make the necessary intervention to help our teachers in the classroom to know who is going to require more hand-holding and to be able to provide that for the student. If we didn't have this information, it might not necessarily be possible to give the student the additional help that they may need. All right. In terms of, just to give you some numbers, if we take a look at the tests, so starting with mathematics and still using those different categories, the beginning, developing, proficient, and highly proficient. In mathematics, most of the students fell into the developing and proficient category. So in the developing category, 43.5% of the students. In the proficient category, 45.9%. And at the higher end, 4.9% of the students. At the lower end, the beginning end, 5.7% of the students. Science has a different profile. 45% of the students are in the developing category, 33.8% in the proficient category, while in highly proficient, it's 20%, and in the beginning category, 1.2%. In social studies, 41.9% in the developing category, 37.2% in the proficient category, 16.1% highly proficient, and 4.8% beginning. In language arts, 22% in the developing category, 62.7% at proficient, and 14.4% highly proficient, with less than 1%, 0.9 at the beginning level. So again, this is all very good information for us to continue to help our students. If we look at just a little bit further analysis at these subject areas, breaking them down by male versus female, in the area of mathematics, 45% of male students who sat the tests have demonstrated proficiency or high proficiency in the concepts, procedures, and application of skills required by the National Standards Curriculum in mathematics, while 56% of female students achieved proficiency or high proficiency. In science, 46.6% of male students who sat the test have demonstrated proficiency or high proficiency. In social studies, 47% of male students who sat the test have demonstrated proficiency or high proficiency. And in language arts, 68.5% of male students who sat the tests have demonstrated proficiency or high proficiency in reading, writing, and research skills required by the National Standards Curriculum. We do have numbers for our girls as well, and I'd have to go back over, but I think if you just do the subtraction, it will give you a sense of where the girls are as well. We will be publishing these numbers. There are many more numbers that we have, that it's better for you to see the tables than for me to call out the numbers. So we will be publishing the summary numbers to let Jamaicans have a good sense of how they break down in terms of the different subject areas and across gender as well. So in conclusion, it must be noted that this form of assessment has several benefits, such as more accurate claims can be made about the students. Students' achievement of the curriculum and their progress will be monitored more regularly. More opportunities will be provided for teachers to identify students' strengths and weaknesses, and therefore plan lessons to meet the specific needs of students. And students can monitor their own learning. The methods used to report students' performance in the primary exit profile provide a more holistic overview of each child, of what each child knows and can do as they transition from the primary level of education to the secondary level. The data gathered from the primary exit profile will serve several purposes. Obviously, the first one is the placement at the secondary level, and a measure of the achievement of the National Standards Curriculum, mathematics, language, arts, and science, as well as the students' ability. The results, the individual results, will be available online at the parent portal starting today at 4 p.m. And the regional offices are all prepared to support schools and parents in accessing and printing results where the service is needed. Parents and or guardians can call the Educate Jamaica helplines at 888-338-2283 and at 888-724-8463, and I'll just repeat, 888-338-2283 and 888-724-8463. 8463 for any queries or concerns. But I know parents are already familiar with this process because last year we used this same process in terms of creating the portal with user IDs and passwords for parents so they could access the reports. We want to express our sincere thanks to the teachers, education officers, invigilators, and administrators at all levels who worked with our students amidst tremendous challenges to help them get to this point. And so let me close by saying congratulations to all our students. We will continue to work with you to help you continue working at your very best. I know parents as well. Let me congratulate you for all the efforts. These past 2 years have not been the greatest for us, for the education sector, given the pandemic. But I know that you did all that you could to help your children through. And so we hope that when you see the results, again, you will recall what we say about the different levels that are on there as it relates to the curriculum-based test, and that to know that we will still continue to call on you to take this journey alongside your child or children. Education, as you know, is a path to success, and we will continue to ensure that it's available to all our children all across Jamaica. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Williams. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the very comprehensive report from Minister on the performance of the students during the course of this year. And at this time, we're going to invite members of the media to present your questions, to raise your questions. And as usual, we invite you to use the raise hand feature. And when you're identified, identify the media house you represent, and of course, you give us your name. So I'm looking now online to see who we may have ready to ask any questions. Do we have any? I'm not hearing clearly.
Brittany Hutchinson.
Okay, yes, we have Brittany Hutchinson from the Jamaica Observer, and she has indicated that she has a question. So go ahead, Brittany, with your question.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brittany Hutchinson from the Jamaica Observer. 2 questions. I'm not sure if I missed it, but the average performance of students for this year, and also, Minister Williams, what is the major difference you've noticed in relation to this year's performance of the students when compared to last year?
Again, it is difficult to compare because the exam last year had different components to it relative to this year. And so we're really cautious about drawing any comparison between the years.
You said you had a second question, Brittany?
Oh, I was saying I'm not sure if I missed it, the average performance for this year.
Mrs. Terry Ann Thomas Gill will give us a response to that question.
Morning, everyone. We're looking at the performance of our students as it relates to the curriculum-based test. For mathematics, we have 5.7% of the population at the beginning. We had 43.5% at developing, 45.9% at proficient, and 4.9% at highly proficient. For science, we have 1.2% at beginning. We have 45% at developing, 33.8% at proficient, and 20% at highly proficient. For social studies, We have 4.8% at beginning, 41.9% at developing, 37.2% at proficient, and 16.1% at highly proficient. Language arts, we have 9%, that's less than 1%. 0.9, sorry, thank you, Minister. 0.9% at beginning, 22% at developing, 62.7% at proficient, and 14.4% at highly proficient.
Thank you very much. And is there any other question? Nobody else online at the moment? Okay, so we have a very comprehensive report, and we will, of course, share the report with you via email, from which you can extract the information for your publication. So we want to thank you for joining us this morning for our press conference. And of course, we thank Minister Williams, Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, our Acting Permanent Secretary, Dr. Casson True, for Acting Chief Education Officer, and Mrs. Terry Ann Thomas Gale from the Students Assessment Unit for bringing us the report today. We want to wish for you a very pleasant day, and we trust that you will continue to share the information with the public about our students' performance. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
I do have a dream, and I know you have a dream, that we can make Jamaica the place of choice for you to choose to live, to work, to do business.
We are going for the Jamaica we want. Making steady progress to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in our National Development Plan. Vision 2030 Jamaica. We have teamed up with valued partners, working through strong institutions to reduce inequalities in our society. We commit to being responsible in our production and consumption, ensuring we build sustainable communities in harmony with nature. Jamaica is making significant strides in providing quality, lifelong education for all, enabling our people to be engaged in decent work to drive economic growth, equipping men and women with the skills to build resilient infrastructure, promote sustainable industry, foster innovation, and utilize new technologies. Urgent action is being taken to manage natural resources responsibly, protecting clean water sources, ensuring access to water and sanitation for all, diversifying to alternative energy sources, conserving our environment and sustaining life below water and on land. Jamaica is making moves to ensure healthy lifestyles for the well-being of our people. We're promoting sustainable agriculture to achieve food security, improve nutrition, and end extreme hunger, putting in the work to end poverty in all its forms. We're on track in achieving our Sustainable Development Goals through realizing our Vision 2030 Jamaica. We will leave no one behind.
And I'm chilling right now because we're winning right now. Warning, 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 warning to the world. Warning, warning, warning. Climate change is happening. We got to do something, no doubt. To the world, we are calling out. Hey. See the signs, they all reveal that global climate change is real. It's not a matter of when or how. Climate change is happening
In 2009, several artists came together to warn us that climate change is real and to demand we take action, climate action.
Summers are hotter than they used to be. Stronger hurricanes more frequently. You see?
13 years later, artists are looking back at the message, the climate action mission, and the role artists can play in today's fight against climate change. Grub Cooper helped produce the iconic climate change song Global Warning, written by Lovindare.
Mr. Grub Cooper, take us back to 2009 and the Global Warning song. Tell us the story. How did you get involved? Why was it necessary to conceptualize this song in the first place?
Indy Lafayette approached me, Lovindare, and some other musicians who, quote unquote, were fairly influential writers in the music business. And she introduced me in a closer way than, so to speak, to the whole business of climate change. So she said a good vehicle to market this whole climate change phenomenon would have been through music. Obviously, I immediately agreed with her because I know that nothing communicates to human beings like music does. The spoken word is fine, you know, even the politicians run to the music thing because spoken words is made on a platform or maybe on a media come in one broadcast. That's saying that when you put it to music and, you know, words and music and a beat and whatever, video go together, it's a coming together of many facets of the arts, and so you can't beat that. So the idea was, let us create a song. And we had meetings and everybody was sensitized. I elected to, let Lovindare be the one to spearhead the writing of the song. And so it came about. So I wrote the song, I arranged it, got many artists to take part, and they were very, very enthusiastic because so good was the whole program that the artists bought into this thing because they understood what Indy was saying and the importance of dealing with the climate change issues. It's now on the front burner, it's not the back burner thing no more. And the video is as relevant today as it was 13 years ago.
I just get a call from, it was you here on our Indy. Yeah, I got a call and Rasta Rebellion, we are doing this project and we would like for you to be on board. Well, climate change, we all know that's something that have to do with life. So it's a yes for me. So I was on board from then.
So it was a no-brainer for me to be involved in the climate change thing. It's no sweat at all. And to this day, it's all there. And if I was called upon to do a song in the morning, I would do it. Because it's that important to mankind. You know, and I am one musician or entertainer. I want to be on the right side of history.
As the primary actor for climate change in the UN system, the United Nations Development Program was asked to contribute funding to the production of a song and music video called Global Warning, spearheaded by Panos Caribbean, and we also funded the climate change education training for participating artists back in 2009. Although produced 13 years ago, the song still resonates with us today with its infectious rhythm and powerful message.
I think the Voices for Climate Change Education Project has so much passion, so much enthusiasm, so much commitment on the part of the artists, and this has been from the start, because remember, it is not a paid program. We've never had money to be able to pay the artists, what we've done, when we've had funds, we would provide a small stipend, and we would cover costs like transportation and food and so on. So the fact that we've had at our highest point, we had 35 artists who were integrally involved in the project, you know, being out there spreading the messages both in Jamaica and regionally and internationally, and they've never really been paid. I think that is tremendous, and I'm so thankful for that goodwill.
So the primary strength of the video is simple communication about climate change and the role that each of us as Jamaicans have to play. So the rhythm is another thing that's very infectious, right? Because the rhythm is very good. You can enjoy it while listening to the music and memorizing the words.
Climate change is happening. Watch this! They're burning the garbage everywhere!
The groundbreaking global warming song and music video inspired another generation of climate advocates.
I get involved through the voice that I had. I sang a song for James Bond Beach here. Let's beautify Jamaica. Let's beautify Jamaica. Let's start with the beach. A clean environment that we seek. Because me no want to see me no sea and no garbage to swim with me now. So beautify our country. Clean up the beach. They led me to Vice for Climate Change from Aine. Aine led me to Iran Silk as a warrior for Vice for Climate Change. He said me fit that purpose, so he sent me on. It was a concern for how we treat the beach, and I was the artist, them say, who fit, they bring that message across. So they came to me and tell me that I must write a song for the beach cleaning up. So when I come down by the beach, I see all of the problems we're facing our environment. Good coral, we fish them, you understand what I say? So I write the song.
Whatever affects the environment and affects us as people everywhere affects me too. And my generation coming up. So naturally, I would be interested in taking part in anything that I see is very conscious and good to take part in. I'm a poet, so I did do 2 pieces of poetry. One of them was, it's time to stand up and take a stance and stand up. It's time to wise up and overstand and stand up. Climate change is a serious thing, so lift your voices and help me sing. Remember, the bird in the tree and the fish in the sea are all depending on you and me. My inspiration for that piece is that the whole environment is hurt. Everything is hurt. All nature is hurt by climate change.
The first time I realized how effective artists can be, you know, of really using climate message fused with song was when I was a part of the delegation going to Paris, COP 21, you know, and I remember being in the Caribbean pavilion, and come lunchtime, you know, music strike up, and, you know, I started performing, and I was performing a song, you know, that was written by myself, you know, in the McCayman Lafayette and Petrie Arena, you know, and when we started, we pulled the whole, every other pavilion, I'm talking about the whole world was there, you know, and we pulled the whole pavilion, the whole other pavilion just came, and we were just looking at people, big cameras that I've never saw before, you know, just want to capture a piece of the song that I was singing, reggae music. You know what I'm saying? The whole thing, I can even sing a little piece of the chorus, please. You know, the song was going something like, Mother Nature is crying, for Mother Earth is dying. while the factories polluting, yes, climate change is happening. Oh, see the sea levels rising, stronger hurricanes are blowing, and what the farmers are farming, global warming destroying. It's getting hotter every day. Climate change is on the rise and it don't play. Got to keep it below 1.5 degrees. 1.5 to stay alive. That's what we need to survive. Yes, 1.5 to stay alive. Don't let it rise above 1.5, no. And when we left the evening to go on the train, everybody was singing this. 1.5, even on the train. When we were picking up our train tickets and things, people were just singing.
Speaking about sea levels rising, what you said in your song, we played out of Jamaica, right? And there's an area called Treasure Beach. So I would say maybe 15 years ago we started playing there, maybe 15, 20 years, because I know them big now, little watch and this and that. And the first time we played at that seafood restaurant, the famous, you know. All right, this is the bandstand here, yeah? And the sea was way out, so then, you know what I mean? Bandstand here and the crowd is there. After maybe 5, 6 years, you know, you don't go there every year, but you go and you say, oh, the sea look nearer now. Probably don't remember the place too tough, you know. About, I would say, now in 2022, maybe about 2017, 2018, when we went down there to play, right? This is the back of the bandstand, yes? Where the post is. And usually the drum riser is right there. The sea was splashing water behind me. Yeah. I said, what is this after being way out? But this is the level of the sea is rising, and it come and it take over the whole thing, so much so that they had to move the bandstand. I think I've been here for a few years, but they moved it. Everything was wrong and they had to move it in until I think they try now do some kind of a barrier thing, artificial barrier reef to kind of hold the thing out. But you know, that is a practical, you say, what? You really couldn't believe it.
One of the most popular spots as a restaurant in Jamaica for many years is out at Brandy's in Hillside. Remember, you went, you had your fish and you walk in the beach. No, you can have your fish and one foot in the beach at the same time. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but a lot of that is the same, is because of malpractice. We need to constantly be pushing these things and in different forms of the art, but definitely music as one of the, you know, the greater driving force to educate and empower people to, you know, make conscious, smart decisions.
A long time we are upset the ecology. No, climate change is a reality. No strange weather changes all year round. We can't stop it, but we can slow it down.
Climate change could drive an additional 100 million people into poverty by 2030. The fact is, climate change impacts water and food security, coastal defenses, economic growth, and livelihood. UNDP's global mission is to eradicate poverty while protecting the planet. As such, climate change is one of the pathways we use to address this issue. This climate change education initiative was an opportunity to expand advocacy for climate action.
Since 2009, I think we're talking about when that nice climate change song with Love in There had come about. I think there has been heightened awareness among Jamaicans. More people are connecting with what's going on in climate change. There is this awareness among the general population at all levels, not only among the people in the communities, but among the government agencies, among everybody. People are connecting more with what is happening. People are living the experiences more and talking about it more. You can see people connecting more. I mean, when people talk about Elsha, they know exactly that it is, they can connect that to a climate event, sea level rise, the impact. When people talk about Little Ochi, they can connect that, sea level rise. When people see the revetment out at the airport now, they know why it is there. So that heightened awareness is being built up. Still a lot more to go, but I think there is this heightened awareness that something is happening and the climate is changing.
I know my love. To adapt to the ever-changing climate, some lifestyle changes we got to make. Emission of gases we have to reduce. Turn off the lights when they're not in use.
The government has, since that time, 13 years ago, advanced a number of climate and climate-related policies. So, if you think about the emissions policy that was generated with the support of NEPA by our Ministry of Environment, the climate change policy framework through the Ministry of Environment as well, climate change division, the energy policy, the national communications, the nationally determined contribution, those are all policy framework documents to guide the country's responses to climate change, both in terms of adaptation and mitigation.
Listening to all of you, and particularly when you share the stories of what's happening in Treasure Beach, what's happening in Hillshaw, it brings me to a fact, or actually something that scientists predict for Kingston, Jamaica. So there's this issue of climate departure, and pretty much what it speaks about is the fact that the warmest temperatures that we have now will at some point become our coldest temperatures in the future. And Kingston, Jamaica is predicted to be one of the first 3 cities to experience that. So whenever I think about climate change, that's pretty much something that bothers me and something that wants me to take, greater action. And so I just want to hear from each of you now, what is it that bothers you the most when you think about climate change and how it's, impacting Jamaica and anywhere else that you may visit on your different journeys?
For me, I think it's a term, will become. Will become would suggest that we have no plans of changing our ways and our attitudes towards best practices for climate purpose. So I think that's one of the most disturbing things, that the fact that people think that this will become and this, it doesn't necessarily have to, and we have to figure ways, innovative ways of getting the information out there, getting the facts out there, because as much as Grub was saying earlier about the powers that be ultimately rest with the people. A lot of times it's just informed decisions. So we just need to get the information out there to the people so they can make informed decisions. So will can change to something else.
It bothers me to see the people not disposing the garbage properly, and then don't realize that when the rain falls and the garbage goes into the wrong place, the rivers and the sea and places like those, it has a very bad impact on the environment.
And what bothered me too, the hesitancy of not taking the step as we see it. We need to be more active. As we see the problem, we need to solve it, because tomorrow we cannot solve it. I'm not talking about the government alone. We need everybody to be active when it comes to climate change.
The UNDP Country Program 2022 to 2026 has 4 pillars that have been tailored to contribute to the reduction of multidimensional poverty in Jamaica. One of these pillars aims to support resilience to climate change, including natural disasters. Under this pillar, UNDP will focus on strengthening policy and legislation, promoting renewable energy and energy-efficient technologies, and developing nature-based solutions to strengthen local climate change adaptation capacities. In line with the focus of our country program document, we call for the expansion of protected areas and forests, policies and programs to foster sustainable livelihood, more nature-based solutions to reduce land degradation, restore ecosystems, and enhance climate resilience, and speedier transition to clean energy and energy efficiency.
Some simple actions that Jamaicans can take to tackle climate change starts with, I would say, drought mitigation. You know, looking at your water security. If you don't have a black tank, buy one. If you can build a tank or gutter your house to ensure that you're finding a way to capture water, because we will be having longer droughts. So we have to prepare for that. Energy conservation, that is very, very critical. You know, turn off your lights when they're not in use. If you can get some solar on your house to cut your electricity bill, these are very practical things that you could look at. And let's not forget planting trees. When we plant trees, we mitigate our carbon footprint. We have shelter, shade, so there are lots of benefits. Trees and mangroves, just replanting in general. These are some of the basic things that we can start with, in addition to educating ourselves continuously about the climate impact.
The other thing is about how we handle our garbage. We've been discussing a lot, and NEPA is supporting initiatives relating to plastics and plastic pollution. We can play a part in containerizing and recycling our plastics, and don't purchase single-use plastics. So we have important roles to play. Easy, but important roles that can have a lasting effect.
Jamaica is known for two things. Our athletics and our music, within the power of the artists, especially an international artist.
If it is that you want to take this movement of Voices for Climate Change education to the next level, what does next level look like to you? What should artists be doing? What is your vision for how music can influence change?
Engagement. We have to get other people engaged, especially the people from now. Generation speak better to generation, their own generation, just like we did. So I think we have to figure out how to get, you know, a more diverse and more youthful set of people involved in getting us to the next stage.
We should be going into the communities now, you know, and educating people about climate change, because it's that critical and it's that important.
13 years later, artists are still united for climate change action with one simple message: climate change is real.
There must be a solution for all this pollution. Climate change is real, it's no illusion. It's killing our world. When it dies, where will you stand? Unless you're planning to leave Earth and go live with mutant. Stop block the drains with plastic and juice pan or beautiful beaches. Every day we lose sun. The fossil fuel from the fire, can't you see it's too strong? Is it worth to kill Earth for a few grand? Mother Nature yearns for life, the more the factories burn. She cries, when will we learn and be wise? The more the ice cap melts, sea rise. Mother Nature yearns for life. Need your help.
We have to go green. We have to go green. 1.5 we need to stay alive. So go green, my people, go green. 1.5 we need to stay alive. Yeah, yeah.
Climate change, yes, climate change. Listen and learn about the climate change. Climate change, less climate change. For some things, we must rearrange. It is real, and the signs are all about. Real in the east, real in the west, real in the north, and real in the south.
So we nearly truly need to take a stand. So we really need another revolution. People, we need to truly take a stand. We really need another revolution before Mother Earth is all gone.
We are all in the same boat, people. Together we sink or together we float. And I also want to say there's no right way to do the wrong thing. So let us do the right thing, deal with climate change now, and never ever give up the fight for it.
We're losing the reefs and the beaches, flooded in a coastal communities. Yeah, yeah. They all reveal that global climate change is real. I want you. It's not a matter of when or how. Climate change is happening now. Jamaica goes to far. Yeah. Declaring the good news of Jesus' love and with spreading joy and cheer. Goes to far.
Teacher for today. Today we'll be looking at science for grade 6. I know that you're excited to be at grade 6 because you'll be doing PEP. You are excited and anxious, but you know what? We are here for you, and we are going to make this journey for grade 6 or in grade 6 much easier for you. All right, so we are looking at science today, and our objectives for today are, at the end of this session, you should be able to formulate a definition for environment. You should be able to identify at least 3 ways to preserve the natural environment. Now, when you think of environment, what comes to your mind? Think about it. So we are talking about the environment. My environment is peaceful, or my environment is calm, my environment looks beautiful. When we talk about our environment, what is it that we are talking about? Now, the environment is a complex mixture of all natural living and non-living things. Let me say that again. The environment is a complex mixture of all the natural living and non-living things. And I said natural living and non-living things. They are natural. So it's a natural part of our environment, where we are, places around us, everything around us takes in our environment. Now, the natural environment that I'm talking about includes soil, water, sunlight, air, and all living organisms on land and in water. Now, I said non-living things, natural non-living things. Remember now, at the previous grades, you would have done living and non-living things. And you know that living things have certain characteristics, some of which includes they are able to breathe, grow, what else? Reproduce, all right, excrete, feed. All right, so now, since as you remember, you might look at the slide and say, all right, then soil, water, those are natural, but are they living things? No, they are non-living things. All right, and the sunlight, but it's a natural part of our environment. It makes up our environment. And then we also have the built environment. What do you think the built environment is? That is the non-living buildings, vehicles, roads, and other structures that are man-made. But do you know that in this environment, you have us as human beings, you have animals, you have your parents, you have birds, all of those. Everything within our surrounding is our environment. Now let us look at this picture. Look at it. Now, can you identify if this is an environment? What do you see in it? You see animals, you see fish, you see whale, you see water. That's a part of the environment. All right. We also look at this other picture. You see the built environment where you have the boats, things that are made. You have the shed, the huts. Then you also have water. You have the land, the soil. You have people. This is what makes up our environment. Now remember, let us go again. And the environment is a complex mixture of all the natural living and non-living things. I want at the end of this session, you are able to say what an environment is, all right? Now, let us look at this next one. We have buildings, we have trees, we have road, water. Do you see all of that? That is also our environment. Now, natural environment, like I said, includes living and non-living things. So we're talking about people. We are living beings. We're talking about animals. We're talking about insects, trees, water. All right? All of that is naturally there. No one built it and put it there. They are there naturally. They come up there. We see them there. We grow and see them. We come on earth and we see them there. So that's a part of our surrounding. It makes up our environment. Now, remember we say that we're looking at how it is that we preserve the natural environment. Remember, natural environment, not the things that are built and placed there and we can put back by building. We're talking about things that are naturally there. So we're talking about like our trees, our soil, what else? That is their natural. Our animals, very good. What else? Our birds, all of that is our natural environment. How is it that we preserve it? What do I mean by preserve? When we say we're preserving something, we're saving. So how do we save our natural environment? Now, there's one thing that we have to avoid, one major one that we're looking at today, and that is avoid deforestation. Look at the word deforestation. Do you see any word in that big word, deforestation? What word can we take out of it? We can take out forest. Very good. Now, do you know what a forest is or what it looks like? Have you ever watched those movies and you see those persons run, go in the forest or somewhere that we consider to be forest, and you tell somebody, boy, and he run out of the house and run into the forest? What does it look like? What does that forest looks like? What is in the forest? We see what? The first thing when we think of forest, we think of trees, yes man, trees and grass and vegetation, shrubs. That is a short tree, short plant. We call them shrubs, all of those things. And in those forests, when we look, we see insects. Sometimes we see snakes. Sometimes we hear birds chirping. That is what we talk about forest. Now, if we have deforestation now, what do I mean by that? Deforestation occurs when there is little or no replanting of forests or replanting of trees, putting it back. Re there means again. So we are planting. To replant means to plant again. All right? So if we do not put back what we take out, then we are considering it as, especially as it relates to forests and the trees and on the nature, we are considered to involve in deforestation. Very good. So deforestation is when we remove the trees, remove the shrubs, and then we don't put them back. Is that a good thing to our nature? Are we preserving our natural environment? Are we? No. Let us look at this one here. Deforestation is caused by, sometimes caused by overgrazing of animals, overgrazing of livestock. Now, for those of us who might have goats or cows at home, you know those, and we sometimes have to take them out and go tie them. Where do we tie them? We tie them near to what? To areas that have grass, areas that have vegetations that the animals can feed on. Very good. Right? Now, Have you ever passed or seen movies where you have large area of land and you see animals there, especially cows, and they're eating and you pass probably today or next month and you see them, they're still eating. That is considered to be grazing. No, it is not bad when animals eat the grass, you know. It is not bad. But guess what? You see, when they do it too often, and that's why we consider it overgrazing, what happens is that it starts to what? To take away the grass, and then there's no more. We don't have any more because of more than one reasons. Now, if the animals stay at one place, what do you think is going to happen? And they keep on eating. It will not have time to grow back. The grass will not have time to grow back. And in addition, the animals, look at them, especially the cows, they're eating and they're getting fat, so they'll be stomping on the ground, and guess what's going to happen to that? The ground is going to become, the soil is going to become so compact that when water is supposed to go through it, it's a little bit difficult. And therefore, the grass or the vegetation will take a while to come back. So overgrazing will also cause or will cause our natural environment to go away. And we don't want that, because remember, we want to preserve our environment. Let us look at another one. We have slash and burn. Slash. When you hear slash, what comes to mind when you hear slash? Slash. It has to do with cutting, right? And guess what happens? Those persons who are farmers, you ever pass some farmlands, or like again, you see on the news, or you will pass by some vegetation, or you see it in some book or in some movie where persons, they're clearing the land for farming, right? They're clearing it for farming, and guess what happens? For them to clear it for farming, they cut down the trees because they want the space to do what? To grow their crops. Very good. So they cut down the trees, and when they cut down the trees, they do what afterwards? Because the trees and the plants or the vegetation is so much for them to move, they burn it at the same place, right? And when they cut it down and burn it at the same place, guess what happens? It takes away all that nutrients from the soil so that it can grow back the plants. All right, because what they do, they prepare the land by slashing and burning so that they can prepare it for quick crops. So they put crops there that can be grown quickly, reproduce quickly, plant up and grow quickly, and then they cut it down and do the same thing over and over. So that section of land does not get any chance to replenish, to come back to life, to grow plants, to grow things that will be there for a long time, because they're taking it away in no time. All right, now let us look at this other one. Cutting down of trees to plant yams. Yes, yams, right? Now, yams need a stick to run upon because they are on a vine. They grow with a vine, so they not the yams on the vine, the yams are in the ground. So what happens is that the farmers, they go and they need stick, but they look for certain sticks. So they cut down the trees, and when they cut it down, they do not do what? Replace it. It's a form of deforestation. They don't replace it. So because they don't replace it, they use it, the sticks, they use it for the yams to grow on them. And when the yams grow on them, what happens? Sometimes because of how long the yam grows on those sticks, they break. Because of weathering also, where water gets it rotten, the sun dries out. So therefore they have to, the next time when they want to plant yam again, guess what they're going to have to do? They have to go for more stick. And they're going to have to cut down more trees. Another form of deforestation, cutting down trees without putting them back. So we take them, let us go, we engage in deforestation by overgrazing, having our animals eat off one spot or stay at one spot and keep on eating it without it getting another space to breathe and to come back. So our natural environment is going away, right? It is being destroyed. And then we also have slash and burn, where farmers cut down, burn, and they don't replace. All right. Then we have cutting down of trees to plant yams. And then we're looking at the next one, burning of wood for coal. Now, some of us would know about that because some of us would use coal to roast breadfruit and to do other things. Now, that coal that you use at home, it comes from trees. Yes, it comes from trees, you know. And guess what happens? You see, from that tree, we have to cut it down from out of a forest or from out of a woodland or from the place somewhere. And when we cut it down, guess what happens? We burn that tree for coal and we don't replace it. So what coal burners do, they don't burn any coal, you know, because you know, especially for some of us who use coal, you know that after a while, if the coal bad, you know, when you say the coal bad, the coal not good because in no time it burn out because we say that the wood light. So what the coal burners do, they go and they select certain trees. And when they select those certain trees now, they cut it down and they don't plant it back. And they keep on cutting down those certain trees and cut down trees. And then some of them, when they can't find the certain trees, guess what they do? They just cut down trees because they want to make a living. So they cut it down to burn coal without replacing, without planting them back. So look at the picture there. See, they cut down the trees. They gather the stick. For B, they put it in a pile, they burn it, and then they have coal, they bag it, and they sell it. When that is finished, they go again. So they keep on doing the same thing over and over. And what do you think is going to happen when we keep on cutting down the trees? We won't have any more natural environment. We won't have any trees in our natural environment. Not only that, students, but guess what is happening? In those forests, in those trees, we know that birds and other animals live. Because if we look around our home, sometimes we see a bird nest, don't? And in the bird nest, we have birds, right? And where they put it, most times they have it in the trees. What do you think is going to happen when we take out all of these trees and we don't replace them? The birds are going to, and the other insects and animals, they're going to find somewhere else to go. But what if they don't have anywhere at all to go? What do you think is going to happen? What you think is going to happen? Think about it. Now let us look at this other reason. Urbanization and illegal settlements. Right, students? Now, what do I mean by urbanization? Now, this occurs when persons migrate from rural areas. Oh, you know what are rural areas? Now, I live in Clarendon. I'm from Clarendon. And in Clarendon, we have a lot of trees. Yes. Right? We have a lot of that trees and vegetation. But guess what? In an urban area like Kingston or Montego Bay, they don't have so many trees. You ever wonder why? No, say for example, I leave from my parish to go to Kingston to live and to work. I would have to need somewhere to stay, which is a house. So what's going to happen? They're going to start clearing areas to create housing scheme. Now, where I am working, close by, they clear out the land, you know, students, they clear out all the trees because they're building a housing scheme. And it's not just a small housing scheme, it's a big housing scheme. So you see, guess what? What we're looking at, you know, after they cut out the trees and clear the land, we're looking at this big white area, which is the dirt. Right? So they cut out the trees, they remove them, and then they have this area, and then they're preparing the area for housing, so that they have housing scheme where we are, so that it builds up the area. So sometimes two persons don't only leave from rural to go to urban, but also they develop the rural areas too, students. They develop the rural areas by putting in housing schemes and business places. And that's why some areas we have towns and parish capitals, because those areas would have been established. And if you should go in some areas in your community, you would see that they're clearing the land to put roads, to put houses, to put other buildings, even schools. So they're clearing out our natural environment. And they're not replacing it, because you can't. Can you plant a tree in a house or on a house? No. So that is taking away all the natural environment, the natural vegetation, the trees and all of those things, to replace it with man-made or built environment. But remember, we're looking at how is it that we preserve our natural environment. All right? Now, let us recap, students. Now, let us look at what is environment again. Now, environment is a complex mixture of all the natural living and non-living things. Remember we say about that? We're looking at it, the environment takes in everything. So right now in my space, my environment takes in my chair, my computer, my desk, my plants, which is a natural thing, right? But it takes in everything around me. So your surrounding is your environment. So it takes in everything that is living and non-living. All right, so they are naturally there. Now, we say that to preserve our natural environment, we have to avoid engaging in deforestation. All right, and we say that deforestation is when we remove trees, remove our plants without replanting or planting them back. And how is it that we engage in such activities? By having our animals engaging over grazing. They stay at one spot too long and eat down the things, eat down the grass, eat down the plants. We also say that farmers engage in slash and burn. They cut down the trees, cut down the area, and then they burn it right there to plant their crops. All right. We also say that farmers again and persons, sometimes not only farmers alone, but you have other persons too who cut down trees for yam planting, and not only for yam planting, but also remember now when we talk about the development of urban areas and development of areas for housing scheme, and persons also when they are making the houses and they're decking, some of them cut down trees to put up the decking, right? That is tree that is cutting down without replacing it. They don't plant it back. All right. So we also have burning of wood for coal. And we know about that because the truth is some persons, their source of fire is a coal. And farmers burn these trees to produce coal, to make coal without planting back these trees. And we also say that deforestation occurs through urbanization and illegal settlement. And what do I mean by illegal settlement? When somebody just go and take a piece of land and they clear it and they just put their house there. All right. So students, I want you to remember and revise throughout the rest of the day, what is environment? What is our natural environment and ways in which we can preserve our natural environment. And until we meet again, that is where we stop for today in science. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
My people, my people, my people, many of us feel concerned or overwhelmed by what is happening with the novel coronavirus around the world and here in Jamaica. It is no different for our beautiful children. Parents and caregivers, I beg you to take the time to talk with your children about how they are feeling and how they can protect themselves. Guess what? We have some tips for you. Help your children not to panic. You know, sometimes when children hear the word corona or COVID-19, they panic, they get worried, and that's okay. But it's up to us to help settle their nerves. First thing we need to do is be calm as parents and adults. Stop. Breathe in, breathe out. And now is the time to start the conversation with your children to find out what they've heard or what they know. And then use age-appropriate language that your children will understand so that they can explore their fears and to comfort them. Also remind your children that most people who get COVID-19 do not get very sick and they do recover.
Encourage your children to get the facts. There's a lot of fake news and wrong information out there, so please encourage your children to get the facts. Now, your older children especially who are exposed to social media, they could be exposed to a lot of wrong information. So hear what? If your child asks you a question and you do not know the answer, now is not the time to guess. What you're going to do is you're going to check reliable sources. You're going to check the World Health Organization. You're going to check PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization. You're going to check the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And of course, you're going to check UNICEF. They are good sources of information. Check them. You and your child can learn. No, it's not about the doom and gloom alone, you know. I want you to share the good stories too. The stories of triumphs, the stories of our health sector workers who are on the front lines ensuring that we bring this pandemic under control. Listen, in every obstacle you have opportunity. This is a good time for some family time getting closer, all right?
Make sure your children know how to protect themselves. So talk to them about 6 simple steps. Number 1, wash their hands. And I don't just mean talk to them, but show them how to do it the right way. They're to wash their hands frequently with soap and water for about 20 seconds. Or if you're like my 8-year-old daughter, she'll tell you the length of time it takes you to sing the ABCs. Whatever you do though, make it fun, especially if you have younger children. Make up a dance, make up a song, just have them washing their hands as much as possible. Number 2, they are to cover those mouths and noses if they're coughing or sneezing. And they should do it with a bent elbow, or as I like to call it, the dab. Or they can go ahead and use a tissue, just that as long as they throw away that tissue in the bin. Remind them they're not to leave it on any surfaces or areas. Number 3, and this is an important one, avoid close contact with persons who might have the cold or flu-like symptoms, but also remind your children not to be unkind to those persons who might be sick. We want to show them love and respect in all of this. Number 4, and I know this is a hard one, but remind your children to avoid touching their face as much as possible. Number 5, use or create new ways of greetings. You heard me. No hugs, no handshakes, no high fives. How about those air hugs, those namastes, the foot knocking, the wagwan? Whatever you do, keep your distance. Number 6, advise your children to tell you or another adult right away if they are feeling sick or displaying symptoms such as coughing, shortness of breath, or fever. Just let them know that this is extremely important so that you can get them the medical help they really need. Now listen, the coronavirus thing, it's a new issue for both adults as well as the children. So while you're teaching them, be patient. Make sure that it is conversational. Make sure you're holding a reasoning. This is not a beat and teach kind of situation, all right? And the most important thing for you to remember is that children live what they learn. So while you're teaching them, you have to be doing it as well. So just stay safe.
Bruises are much worse. You have to report him. Yeah, but if I go to the police station, they're just going to see it as another man and woman fighting.
Victims of domestic abuse can get help through the Domestic Violence Intervention Centers. Let me show you how to find one of these centers. Open the browser on your smartphone and type in jcf.gov.jm. When the page loads, scroll down to Resources and click on Domestic Violence Intervention Centers. This will give you a full listing of all the centers with their contact information. Or just walk into any police station and ask them to direct you to the nearest Domestic Violence Intervention Center where you can speak to a police officer.
A message from the European Union United Nations Spotlight Initiative in partnership with the Government of Jamaica.
Hi, I am Gervin Wright, an assistant pastor at Hope Gospel Assembly. I am not amused because there is no excuse for abuse. It's not right. It must stop. Stop the cycle of abuse. Our men, women, and children are hurting. As a matter of fact, our Jamaica is hurting. We should join together in the fight to stop the cycle of abuse. Women, if you need help, call our helpline 876-553-0372. Our men, 876-553-0387. Remember, there is no excuse for abuse.
No excuse for abuse.
Here is a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5. treat our children directly impacts what they believe about themselves. That was a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5.
Your 10th place is your first decimal place. So if you identify that place, you want to look to the right of it, which is your 100th place. Is the digit 5 or more? It's not. It's 4 or less. So it's less than 5, I should say. So it's 2. We do what we call rounding down. So this becomes 89 and 7/10. All right, 7/10. All right, then we go to 2 decimal places. So I'm writing the number again. We're identifying now the 100th place. The 100th place is occupied hundredths. This is supposed to be a rectangle. I don't know what happened. So the 100th place is occupied by 2, and we're going to look to the right of it, which is the 1000th place. It is 6, so it's great. It's 5 or greater. It falls into that group of numbers. So we do what we call round up, and I really should write some other things here, but I'm going to look at it on the screen when I'm finished. So it's going to be 6. I'm going to add 1 to my 100th place. My new value, rounded off to 2 decimal place, is 89 and 73 hundredths. Let's look at the screen, everyone. All right. So the average grade for 5 subjects, 89 and 726 thousandths. And then to the nearest whole number would be 90. Correct to 1 decimal place. I want you to pay attention to how I write it, because you want to make sure that you, whomever you're writing your answer to, understand where you've done your rounding off to. So I put 1D dot P dot means 1 decimal place, and it is 89 and 7/10. What I have in the bracket is how you call the number. Your visual representation is 89.7. All right, and then we have to 2 decimal places would be 89 and 73 hundredths. Because remember that a fractional number, a decimal fraction, is a part of a whole. So we say and. 1 decimal place is your 10th place. 10th place is your 1 decimal place. So let's just look at what we must identify. The digit in the 10th place. That's the first thing. You need to know where you're rounding off to. The next thing, observe the digit in the 100th place, and that is the right of the 10th place. Then, if there are 5 or more hundredths, then we round up by increasing the digit in the 10th place by 1. If there are 4 or less ones, should be hundredths, then we round down by decreasing the hundredths and all the lesser places, because you should know by now, as you move right, the value, the place value becomes less. If you move from left to right, you decrease by the power of 10 for each place. Good. So you replace all those with zeros and the place that you're rounding off to. In this instance, the 10th place remains unchanged or as is. All right, so let us round off some more, guys. So here's another scenario. You're a meteorologist, and due to all the heavy rains, you have the need to account for the rainfall to the people of Jamaica. Using a rain gauge, or some may say gauge, you are reporting on the levels of precipitation. Precipitation may be rain, snow, sleet. In this case, we're talking about rain. In 4 parishes, as there have been much landslides and flooding. This is the data collected. So you have Portland, 14 and 57 hundredth inches of rain. St. Thomas, 18 and 365 thousandth of inches of rain. Then you have St. Andrew, 11 and 241 thousandths of inches of rain, and St. Andrew, you have 8 and 301,000, yes, inches of rain. Now, please report your data to the second decimal place. So you have these data and they tell you that all of them must be reported to the second decimal place. So let's go to the board. So we have Portland, and we have that data already. So let's just put in St. Catherine, which would have been 8, and this is all inches. I'm just going to leave that out for now, but they're all inches. So if you're rounding off these numbers to the second decimal place, what place is that again? Exactly, it's your 100th place. So let's identify the digit in the 100th place for all the numbers that we have. 100th place will be the second place to the right of the decimal point. This is your 100th place. 100th place. So that's the first thing you want to do. You want to identify the place you're on off to. So now let's look at Portland. What digit is in the place to the right of 7? Nothing. So already this 14 and 57 hundredths is in the second decimal place. So it stay as is. So 2, so you can write to 2 dp, and I'm only going to write it for the first one because of time would be that. So I'm just going to use an arrow to show you what the second decimal place is. So 18 and 365 thousandth, we look for the, so to the right of the 100th place is 5. It's great. It's 5 or greater. You round up. We end up with 18 and 37 hundredths. Then we go here. 1 is to the right of the 100th place. So we're going to round down. We have 11 and 24 hundredths. And then we have here, we have 8. To the right of it is 1. We're rounding down again. 8 and 30 hundredths. There you go. So now let's go to the board, the screen, to just look at what we have. So as I said to you, it's important that you put in the decimal place in which you are representing your number after you've rounded off. So as you can see there, I have 2 dp, and I would have done it for all the parishes. All right, there you go. So let's just look at that one last time. So you'd see it for all the parishes, and you would have realized that all the numbers are now, the decimal fraction there would be in the hundredths because you're running off to the second decimal place. Awesome stuff. What is the pattern that we're seeing here? You guys should get it by now, but let's go through it together. Excuse me. We identify the digit in the hundredths place. That's the first thing we do. Then we observe the digit in the thousandth place. That is to the right of the hundredths place. Then, if there are 5 or more thousandths, then we round up by adding 1 to the 100th place. And if it is 4 or less, we round down by decreasing the thousands, the thousandth, and all lesser places to 0. And the digit in the hundredths place remain as it is. Awesome stuff. So some City and Guilds exam questions. Let us go through them together. The first question here is 436 and 468 thousandths with an S, written correct to 2 decimal places. So what place are we rounding off to? Exactly, to the hundredths place. So the first thing we want to do is we want to identify which digit is in the 100th place. And what digit is that? Exactly, digit 6, the digit 6. Then we look to the 1000th place. And the digit in the 1000th place is 8. 8 is more than 5. 8,000th is closer to another group of, to one group of hundredths. So we round up by adding 1 to the 6, and our answer becomes 436 and 47 hundredths. And that is to the second decimal place. And that will be option D. All right, awesome. Next question. A calculator display shows 17 and 6, that is what, 679 10,000th, and that would be round it off to two decimal places. So we're still looking at the 100th place, and the same thing. You look for the digit in that place. What digit is that? 100th place would be occupied by your 6 again, and we would now look to the right of that digit, which would be your 1000th place, which would be 7. 7 is 5 or greater, so you round up, and your new number becomes 17 and 700th. There you go. And I hope you're realizing that once you're rounding off to your second decimal place, it is now called your 100th place. So you know, once you run off to your second DP, your answer will be in your second DP. All right, so that's option B. All right, great job. Let's look at this one. The calculator displays shows this number, and you can see 13.1942. And that would mean you now look for what number is in your, what digit occupies your 100th place, and that digit is 4. Really? No, it's not. What digit is in your 100th place? 9. All right, but the digit to the right of it, as you can see, is 4. So we round down. Because it's 4 or less, we round down. And your new number rounded off to the second decimal place is 13 and 1900ths. And that would be option C. All right, so the next one. So now we're rounding off to the nearest tenths. It should be. So it's 1 decimal place, and it is your 10th place. So it's 52 and 6900ths, rounding off to 1 decimal place. What place are we rounding off to? Your 10th place, of course. And we identify the digit in your 10th place, which is 6. We look to the right of that digit, and that digit would be 9. It is greater than 5, so we round up. So the option now is 52 and 7/10. Your option C is your correct response. Awesome. Another question. 3 and 416 thousandths written to 1 DP or 1 decimal place is, and by now you should be hearing me running through your head over and over. Identify the place that you're rounding off to, the digit in that place. We're rounding off to the 10th place. 4 is the digit in the 10th place. You look to the right of it and you see 1. So you know if it's 1, you're going to round down. It's that simple. So we're rounding down, and your new number would be 4 and 3. 3 and 4/10. 3 and 4/10, which should be option B. All right. Great job. Guess what? We still have some more to go. What is 0.428 428 thousandths written to 1 decimal place? Doesn't change. We'll look for the digit in that decimal place, which is your 10th place, and that digit is what? Well, we just figured it out right there. The digit would be your 4, and then we look at the 2. The 2 would have been less than 5. We round down, and we just replace the other numbers with 0, and your answer to 1 DP is 0.4, or what we call 4/10.
I wish to inform Jamaica that the government has already launched Operation Get Every Illegal Gun. My message today, therefore, is directed to the many young men who have illegal weapons in their possession, who hide the weapons, or as they say, lock them. And I'm speaking as well to the girlfriends, the baby mothers, the sisters and the mothers who give them cover and protection. I'm giving you warning. Put down the gun. Give it up. Leave the gang. Dissociate yourself from the gunmen. Otherwise, the consequences will be grim.
You really hit your you hard this time. I tried fighting back, but that only made him angrier. Bruises are much worse. You have to report him. Yeah, but if I go to the police station, they're just going to see it as another man and woman fighting. They're going to blow me off.
No, that's not the case. Victims of domestic abuse can get help through the Domestic Violence Intervention Centers. These centers are located at different police stations across the island with specially trained officers in a confidential environment. Although it is located at the police station, it is set apart by itself. Nobody knows to know. Let me show you how to find one of these centers. Open the browser on your smartphone and type in jcf.gov.jm. When the page loads, scroll down to Resources and click on Domestic Violence Intervention Centers. This will give you a full listing of all the centers with their contact information.
So I can use this to find the Domestic Violence Intervention Center nearest to me?
Yes, and when you do, you can call them for help. Or just walk into any police station and ask them to direct you to the nearest Domestic Violence Intervention Center where you can speak to a police officer.
There is help. Let us help you today. Reach out to one of our domestic violence intervention centers before it's too late.
A message from the European Union United Nations Spotlight Initiative in partnership with the government of Jamaica.
Good day. How are you doing today? I'm Julia Edwards, and I'm going to be sharing with you from the CSEC Management Syllabus, more popularly known to you as the Family and Resource Management Syllabus, and looking at specifically at Section 5, which deals with managing special events. For today's session, we're going to be focusing on 3 objectives. The first one being looking at different types of special events, how to identify them, how to describe them. We're also going to be looking at explaining the processes involved in planning special events, as well as how to develop proposals for implementation of these events. Think about these questions. Why are special events created? What purpose do they serve in society? Have you ever planned a special event? Have you attended any special events recently? And most importantly, what was your experience at one of these events? Let's talk about the definition for special events, because we've all seen them. Sometimes we don't even know that it's a special event. When you talk about a special event, the most critical thing to understand, it is something that is separate from the everyday activities of life. So, the definition, it describes specific rituals, presentations, performances, and celebrations that are consciously planned and created to mark special occasions and or to achieve particular social, cultural, and corporate goals and objectives. There are different ways of looking at it. Of course, it's a unique moment in time. It's a one-time or infrequently occurring event. To your customers and guests, if you're planning for others, it's a special event, which is an opportunity for leisure, for social or cultural experience outside of the norm of everyday activities. Having said that, what are some types of special events that come to mind? We think about dances. We think about marriage and marriage-related activities, so your anniversary, the planning of a wedding, and of course even long before the wedding, you would have had other things. You'd have the engagement party, right? All of those activities. Births, did you know birth is a special event? Yes, because people plan their showers, right? They plan christenings. So birth and birth-related activities, the same for death, right? So it's not just parties, it's not just faith-based events where we plan different activities for church, right? So the concerts, the plays, and so on, right? The conventions. What about your community picnic? The barbecue, graduations. There are a whole host of special events. But I bet you never thought about sporting events. Champs, right? The sports day at school. All these events follow the same pattern in terms of planning. You have to do some of the same basic considerations when in your preparation. The difference is when you get to the more advanced stages in terms of the actual activities of the day and where the event will take place, those are the things that actually make it different. So when you're planning special events, it's important to think about the purpose of the event. Why are you doing it? Imagine if you never thought about the purpose. And so your parents' anniversary celebration looks the same as when you were having your sweet 16 birthday. You wouldn't want that, would you? You have to think about the purpose of the event, because the activities, the choices you make will be part of what influences the outcome of the event. Think about who will attend the event. Will special guests be invited? Who will be responsible for organizing this event? What is your budget? Yes, you have to think about the budget. Have you ever heard about champagne appetite? Bag juice budget? Of course, it's important to ensure that when you are planning an event, you think about what you can actually afford. It doesn't matter if it is a lavish wedding that you'd like to have versus a more private event. If you decide that I want to have a large group of people gathering, it still does not have to cost an arm and a leg. But there are key choices you will have to make to take yourself out of the expensive bracket to a more affordable bracket. Who will be responsible for coordinating the logistics of this event? And who will monitor the execution? Because it's always great to have a plan, but who is going to put the plan to work? And all the follow-ups in terms of all the stakeholders, who the event is for, all the planners, the various stakeholders in the plan. You have to think about all of these bits. The first steps to planning an event, so first, decide on your event goals. What do you want to accomplish? Determine the budget. Brainstorm a theme. It's always important to have a theme because, of course, if you somewhere so that you'll have to decorate, you have to think about what the layout is going to be. You have to think about the interior decor. You have to think about the external ambience, right? So brainstorm a theme. And of course, if you're going to require speakers, research entertainment, and choose those that will speak to your goals. Now, I've said quite a bit, and I hope you've been taking notes. It's important to remember, if nothing else I say today resonates, remember the 5 W's and the 1 H. 5 W's, 1 H. What is the event? When is it going to be? Where will it be? Why am I doing this? Who is it for? Because you have to think about your target audience, right? If it's a party, all parties are not created equal. So you have to ensure that you think about your target audience so you can plan the catering, the entertainment, the location, all of that in mind to match your target audience. And you have to think about the sort of experience you want people to have. And that is where the how comes in. How will it happen on the day? Think about it. Because you'll have to actually set the tone, set the pace, and ensure that you have all the right staff in place to fulfill these obligations. We'll take a break here, and when we come back, we will continue by talking about the planning checklist. Now, we spoke about how we plan our events. One very good thing to remember when you're doing event planning is your documentation. Write things down. We cannot rely on our memory all the time. Life happens, sometimes we get distracted. And of course, remember, you're not planning alone. More often than not, you have others working with you. So it's important to write things down so that others can also have that information as well, and it keeps everybody informed. So, a simple thing to do is to ensure you have a checklist. The checklist will itemize all those things that you want to include on the day. So you want to ensure that you have all of these components documented, and of course you're able to go back and check it to ensure that there's nothing left off. And of course that will help you in staying organized, and if anything is missing, you can quickly add it and bring yourself up to speed. So for the simple checklist, you just do a table. And so looking at the presentation, you will see there's a simple table that will itemize the task, the description of each task, the person responsible, the status. And the status is important because what you're simply saying, this is a working document. It's not just to write it and put it down to keep and care. You know how I'm sure some of you do with those subjects that you don't like? You take all the notes in class, but you don't go back and study. That's not what we are doing here with your plan. You're going to go back, you're going to check your plan, and so once you would have prepared this plan, your template would have been blank in terms of the status. Another column you'd have there is the next steps. Under status, you're going to say whether the activity is completed or where it's at, what has been accomplished so far. So it's not just to have it on the sheet, but to say what has happened. Again, it keeps you organized. And for next steps, you're simply saying, this is what I have done. Now what is next? What is supposed to happen? For example, what if you chose an outdoor venue for your event, but then there is a natural disaster that happened, right? There's a rainy season or something comes up that is not expected, and so you have to make adjustments. Now, yes, you would have checked out your venue, you would have done your site visit, you're sure it's okay, but now that the event has come up, this activity has come up, you have to make changes. What are you going to do? You may have to find another venue. So you have to ensure that you include things like that in your checklist. So what does your checklist include? And there are 18 things listed here, 18 parts listed here on the presentation. The date of the event, the theme of the event, your budget, your booking of the venue, your site visit, because yes, you chose the venue. You probably reserved the venue, but you need to ensure you go and do the site visit. The site visit is where you go and you look at the space and ensure that all components of the space meet the requirements for your event. What is in the space, what you will need to bring in the space, what you would need to take out, all the adjustments that you need to make, because this will also influence your decor, right? Which is one of the items on your checklist. You need to think about your guest list. Who will be there? It's not sufficient to just call people and say, oh, I want you to come, especially if you're having a formal event. Make a list. Even if it is informal and you're going to be calling persons, ensure you make a list. You don't want to offend anybody by leaving them out, right? So you don't, and you also don't want to invite people only to realize, oh, this is not the event for that person based on their lifestyle and preferences. So it's important to make a guest list that you can go back and you can check. Invitations, confirmations, floor plan, speakers and presenters if that is needed, your catering, your schedule of activities. Your schedule of activities is simply what will happen on the day. Your entertainment, media, and nowadays it's not just traditional media, you also need to think about social media, right? Because a lot of the events that young people are having are more informal, they're more casual, and so they don't necessarily require all that comes with traditional media. But social media is very critical, so you need to think about what kind of media you will have. You need to think about your security. Security is an important component of every event. because you're securing your guests, you're securing your space, you're securing your tools of the trade. You need to ensure that you have security. You're securing the staff. Also, you need to consider parking. It's not sufficient to say, oh, the space can hold 100 people without thinking about where these 100 people will park when they get to the venue. And although you're thinking about all of those things, do not forget your post-event activities. You would have invited these persons, you would have planned for them, they came and they had a wonderful time. But it's important to think about the post-event activities. What happens after the event? So, do you have bills that you still need to pay? Do you need to send out thank you notes to the persons that you invited? You need to think about all your post-event activities, and that is included on your checklist. What you do will be dependent on the type of event. Now, on your screen, you are seeing a part of a completed checklist. So it is showing you those same components I just spoke about in terms of the task. It gives you a full description of each task, persons responsible, and it gives you the status of these activities. So for example, here I'm picking up the booking of the venue. So as a task, so the description would say, select and reserve venue. Who is responsible? Mary Sue. What is the status? That is done. Once that is done, it tells you that your venue is secure, because you cannot send forth your invitations until you have that, because therefore, where will your guests go? So you have to bear in mind what activities need to take place pre-event in the planning stages, and so on. You'll hear more about this when we talk about the event cycle. So, the event cycle has 4 stages. And the four stages, the biggest part of that is the planning, and that is what we would have been talking about so far. Most of what I've said had to do with the planning. Planning is the first step in the event cycle. You plan the activity, you also need to promote the activity if it needs to be. Again, promotion depends on the type of activity. You certainly would not be promoting your private Christmas dinner at home with just your family. At least not in the same way you would promote your Sweet 16 or the community picnic. How do you promote the family Christmas dinner? If it is that you're inviting other relatives, part of your extended family, then you need to reach out and let them know what is going to be taking place at your home and you'd like them to come. So that would be promoting as well, but just more informal. Then you also need to consider the at-event activities. What is to take place on the day, because the at-event activities actually influence greatly what you would have planned, because you want to see your plan comes through, and you also want to ensure that your guests are going to have a wonderful time. I get excited when I plan events, and the biggest part of it is that what experience will people leave with, right? I want to ensure that when they leave an event that I would have been responsible for, all they're talking about is the experience they had. And then, after the event, we spoke earlier when I spoke about the checklist, a critical component after. What is that? That's right, the post-event. Remember to say thank you. People's time is quite valuable, and you want to ensure that if persons take the time to spend it with you, you're sharing your gratitude. And of course, bearing in mind that if it is of something that you would have promoted where you're earning, of course, it's saying to persons, hey, you know, I had a good time, and they also remember to say thanks. I would go to another event that they're having, right? So you want to ensure that you bear that in mind. Now, at this time, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we will talk about the roles and responsibilities of the organizing team.
I am Jamaican.
I am JDF Coast Guard.
I am an infantry soldier.
I am JDF Airway.
I am
a JDF soldier.
Role of the DRF in violence prevention in our society is to mediate. We believe that mediation is really a very good thing in terms of resolving disputes at the court level, at the parish court level, and at the Supreme Court level. Now, let me tell you about some of the matters that may come at the parish court levels. You and I live in a tenement yard and a fight. We report the matter to the police, it goes to court. The judge may say, well, you know, you are just probably a teenager. Go to mediation and see if you can get a settlement. Because if you can agree, then you won't have a criminal record. We urge everyone, all our offices, come to our offices, no matter how simple the matter may be, come to us. We have persons who are trained.
What changes and what stays the same?
A lot of persons think that math is a genius subject.
The teachers themselves pass on the anxiety of mathematics.
They may have been told that mathematics is hard.
And this is born out of the interaction they have with the teacher. A culture that is negative towards the subject.
Mathematics, a beautiful yet misunderstood subject. Many Jamaicans have developed an aversion to the subject, with most describing it as difficult. The National Mathematics Program at the Ministry now has a mandate to improve the country's performance and overall appreciation for the subject. Through the support of the Education Sector Transformation Plan Learning and Teaching, a Japan-funded IDB grant, noted international math consultant Dr. Jennifer B. Williams was engaged to conduct a series of professional development sessions with our math practitioners, lecturers and heads of departments.
There were two main objectives of the sessions. We really wanted to improve the knowledge and skills of the mathematics coaches as well as the teacher educators who participated in the training. So by improving knowledge, we really mean we want them to know about the mathematics practices. And the second objective, I would say, was really to build a community of practice.
The coaches would have had sessions with Dr. B. Williams that gave them a deeper dive into some of the practices. So we want to pass on some of what we would have learned through those training sessions. And also, if needed, engage pre-service teachers at critical points in their program.
I benefited a lot. I was able to garner information that I could actually pass on to the coaches that I supervise. And it also gave me enough information that once in schools, I could actually see what the teachers are doing, if they were actually appropriate, and give guidance.
Under the National Math Program, our goal is really to transform mathematics education across the entire system. And so we would need to ensure that we build capacity in our teachers' colleges.
The sessions were quite engaging. We had gone through the various math practices as well as the mathematical shifts that can be used in our instructions. Now, of course, the landscape of teaching is changing on a daily basis, so it's quite up to us as educators to ensure that we are prepared adequately for this change.
We were able to get some manipulatives and some ideas as to how to improve our teaching strategies at the colleges.
My lecturer came to class one day with a science problem, and I was very confused because it is not necessarily one of my strong points. However, she used the concept of mathematics to allow us to answer that science problem without mentioning anything as it relates to biology.
So things like that, we were exposed to the fact that math cannot be just boring or in a little box. You have to change the textbook questions that are there, mundane questions, and so that students are engaged, and also that students will be able to open their thinking processes and apply the math to the real world.
When my lecturers returned from the training session with Dr. Jenny Bay Williams, I started to realize that they started placing emphasis on the 8 mathematical practices.
The math practices actually is a way of thinking while doing math, or it's actually the thing that mathematicians do. So if the teacher is aware of these practices and she can look out into the classroom to see what the students are doing, then she can actually guide them. We have been encouraging our students to solve more problems using Polya's problem-solving strategies. We have also been encouraging them to contextualize and decontextualize problems.
So it's not just about you learning something to pass an exam. It is about learning how to teach algebra. It's about learning how to teach measurements. So when you leave my class, you should know why we do things, so that you knowing why, you are now able to help students in the same way.
The most important thing I have garnered, I would have to say, is using appropriate tools strategically.
So anytime a student comes into the classroom, they should be able to say, yes, I'm excited to attend that particular class. Why? Because Miss always come with something, you should always come with something innovative, and that is what we want to see in our classrooms.
Training with the teachers and the teacher educators is focused on ensuring that they support students who are learning math in exhibiting the practices, which is how we are now assessing to see how much math learning has taken place. So that's what we expect to see: improved teaching that will support improved learning and student outcomes in the long run.
The feedback has been fantastic. Persons were generally excited about the sessions that they participated in. Initially, there was some hesitance and reticence about what it's really about. But we noticed as the sessions continued, persons were really excited, really engaged in the sessions. Just the feedback from Dr. Bay Williams herself was positive, because persons were very engaged and enthused about what she was delivering.
They actually became more confident. So the sessions really helped them, especially the last session. A lot of persons came back saying that, yes, now I understand the importance of 1, 2, 7, and 8, which were kind of very technical at first for them. I want to thank the government of Japan and IDB for having given us the opportunity to get this training, because it has been helping our students and it has been helping us to improve how mathematics is taught in Jamaica.
Coding and programming share the same language. So I got more interested because of programming, because a couple of years ago I wanted to do programming at VTDI.
Yo, this is We're committed to reducing the impact of disasters occurring in Jamaica. We're ever ready to assist you before, during and after a disaster. But everybody have a role to play, so make we work together and follow the plan. Whether rich or poor or where you come from, hurricanes affect everyone, so be prepared. Prevention is better than cure. Be prepared. Listen to ADPEM.
A message from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management.
It's Friday, July 8. In the headlines, thousands benefiting from JPS copay. Education Minister urging parents to send kids to summer school. Regionally, Trinidad declares they will not take on any further debt for regional air travel. Internationally, Japan's ex-Prime Minister Abe dies after being shot. And in sports, Reggae Girls suffers defeat in CONCACAF Championship. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I am Simone Absalom Gale. Approximately 474,550 post-paid residential customers who consumed fewer than 200 kilowatt hours of electricity in April have received a 20% contribution towards their bill payment. Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, made the disclosure during a statement to the House of Representatives this week. Raquel Robinson reports.
Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, says that this was reflected on May bill.
In addition, Madam Speaker, 9,235 prepaid customers received $3,000 in electricity payment support, also paid in May.
The minister also informed that in May, 478,461 residential customers consumed fewer than 200 kilowatts per hour, and the government contributed 20% of their bill for a total cost of approximately $533.7 million.
In addition, 9,773 prepaid customers received $3,000 in electricity payment support in June.
In March, Dr. Clark announced that more than 450,000 low and middle income households consuming up to 200 kilowatts per hour of electricity per month for the period April 2022 to July 2022 will receive a 20% contribution towards their bill payments. In addition, $3,000 per month would be contributed over the same period for prepaid residential customers. This is being provided for under the government's We Care Energy copay program. Reporting for PBCJ, I'm Raquel Robinson.
Parents are being urged to ensure that their children are engaged in the National Summer School Program. Minister of Education and Youth, Favour Williams, is making the call. She says it will benefit their long-term development. She told JIS News that it is painful to see parents having children work instead of taking advantage of the program. She describes the practice as a short-term benefit, explaining, quote, "They will be able to help you so much more if you allow them to get their education. They'll be able to get a better job to help you rather than earning the little bit now," end quote. The National Summer School Program, which commenced on July 4, is aimed at addressing loss of learning due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Classes are being held online and face-to-face for over 4 weeks, up to July 28. Principal of Harborview Primary School, Lawrence Wright, says that the highway leading up to the roundabout at Harborview is a death trap for pedestrians.
The challenge that the students and the wards have at a pedestrian crossing leading towards the roundabout at Harborview are many. The students have to wait on vehicles to stop, literally, because many students have had injuries.
He says the pedestrian crossing on the road has not been painted in years, and he is calling for help to get it repainted.
Maybe a couple of years ago, the MP for the constituency gave us some paint because we appealed to her to help us repaint the pedestrian crossing. So we need help. We need school zone signs. We need pedestrian crossing. If we can get an overhead bridge, I don't know if it is feasible, but we can ask. It is something that is a need. I mean, the Woolmer's schools have it, and their road is not as dangerous as the highway. And with the new with all the development coming on the street, it's going to be even a faster thoroughfare.
The PBCJ reported in a previous newscast that the traffic wardens in that area have been having a hard time getting the students and other pedestrians safely across the street. Meantime, Transport Minister Odeshaw says regulations are coming to deter motorists from speeding inside school zones. He says in addition to the current speed limit areas, provision is now being made for school safe zones,
in which the speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour, as well as areas with a 65 kilometer per hour speed limit. Implementation of these new speed limit provisions will be phased.
He says work is being done to identify, update, and finalize boundaries. He made the announcement in Parliament this week while outlining a raft of provisions under the Road Traffic Regulations 2022, which was subsequently approved. The Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF, is increasing its use of technology to fight crime. Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson gave an update at a JCF virtual press brief this week. The police chief says ballistics of seized firearms are being recorded and compared.
And so we have software that can tie firearms and their uses to particular places and so on. And it gives us a picture that we work with.
He says the force is working with partners overseas to find out the source of illegal firearms imported into Jamaica.
Who may have sent them to Jamaica. So it's really an end-to-end process that we look at, and we have had convictions relatively recently in the U.S. from joint investigations that are done between us and police forces in the U.S. Obviously, we work with the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, in the U.S. and their databases to track these weapons.
Deputy Commissioner of Police Fitz Bailey further explained how the system works locally.
We have a system whereby we categorize firearms as wanted firearms, and we have actually linked 57 recovered firearms to 163 cases, and there are 230 wanted firearms that are linked to 662 cases.
DCP Bailey says last year at this time it was 538 hits. In February this year, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced a new Get the Guns campaign. Under the initiative, a reward system was put in place where between $250,000 and $500,000 should be paid for illegal weapons. He appealed to persons in possession of illegal guns to give them up. He also urged persons with information to share it with the police. A delegation of potential Saudi Arabian investors will arrive in Jamaica on Friday. The visit follows months of negotiations led by Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett and Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator Auburn Hill. This latest move is part of the Tourism Ministry's move to expand Jamaica's tourism offerings and market. The matter was discussed during an episode of PBCJ's Current Affairs show, PBCJ Presents.
We had good meetings with the largest airline in the Middle East, Emirates, and we have good responses. As a matter of fact, no, just to let you know that they are now selling Jamaica. We don't have the critical mass yet to allow for the A380s and the 777s extended to fly into our space. But we're building that, and what we were able to get is Emirates Holidays to start selling Jamaica. So Jamaica now is inserted in their platform. So you want to go to Jamaica, you can buy a ticket from Emirates through a number of gateways, including Malpensa in Italy.
Minister Bartlett, in a statement, says the group includes over 70 private sector players and government officials in logistics, agriculture, tourism and hospitality, infrastructure and real estate. They will be shown different investment options in the corporate area, Montego Bay and other parts of the island. United States President Joseph Biden has bestowed the Presidential Medal of Freedom honor on Jamaican-born nurse Sandra Lindsay. Nurse Lindsay was the first person in the United States to have been vaccinated against the coronavirus that has killed and infected millions of Americans since 2020. Sandra Lindsay is a New York critical care nurse who served on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic response. President Biden described her as a, quote, prominent advocate for vaccines and mental health for healthcare workers, end quote. Lindsay, an intensive care unit nurse at Long Island Jewish Medical Center in Queens, New York, says it was just amazing that she, quote, this young lady from Jamaica would one day end up in the General Assembly, end quote. Lindsay, who holds a doctorate in health sciences, received her first COVID vaccine on December 14, 2020, following emergency authorization use of the shots. Jamaica recorded its first confirmed case of monkeypox this week. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, made the announcement during a virtual press conference on Wednesday, July 6. He said the male patient, who recently traveled from the United Kingdom, is in isolation and is being treated. The authorities say there is no need to panic, but we have to be aware of the symptoms of the disease and how it is spread. The virus is transmitted from one person to another by close contact with lesions, body fluids, respiratory droplets, and contaminated materials such as bedding. World Health Organization's technical lead, Dr. Rosamund Lewis, tells us more.
Monkeypox is not a new disease. It was first discovered in a monkey in 1958, and hence the name. However, the first infection in a human was discovered in 1970 in a small child in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Since that time, increasing numbers of cases have been recognized, and in particular over the last 5 to 10 years. What's different now is that we're seeing cases in other countries that normally don't have monkeypox, and this is very unusual. We've had the occasional outbreak or single case detected in a traveler from West Africa, but in fact we've never seen an outbreak like this before. The most important thing about monkeypox is that it does cause a rash, which can be uncomfortable, it can be itchy, and it can be painful. So the most important thing about caring for someone with this illness is basically taking care of the skin and taking care of any symptoms that someone might have, such as pain or itchiness. It's important to know that research over many years has also yielded some vaccines and treatments for monkeypox. These are new products and not yet widely available. However, the vaccine is recommended for persons who have been in contact with someone who has monkeypox. When it comes to treatment, most people don't need the new products. Most people don't have a severe case of monkeypox and can be managed conservatively with regular care. Where it's necessary, it may be possible to access the new treatments for a very select few patients who may need them.
In the business report, GK Capital and Trinity Mutual Fund, UTC, join hands in providing investment opportunities for Jamaicans. Denita Rodney reports.
Unit Trust Corporation, UTC, a mutual fund in Trinidad and Tobago, has announced the signing of a joint venture agreement with GK Capital Management Limited, GK Capital, a subsidiary of Grace Kennedy, GK Limited, to offer additional investment options for Jamaican investors. UTC, in a company release, said the Jamaican market is characterized by a vibrant money market, a dynamic stock exchange, and close affiliations with U.S. financial markets via money transfers within this environment. UTC indicates that it will leverage its expertise and replicate what was accomplished in Trinidad and Tobago to provide financial hope and create wealth in investors. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, July 7, the US dollar sold for an average of $151.79. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $117.60. The pound sterling traded for $182.73, and the euro sold for an average of $156.10. The following reflects the movement of the JSE indices in Thursday's trading session. The JSE index advanced by 331 points to close at over 300,000 units. The junior market index declined by 8 points to close at over 4,000 units. The combined market index advanced by 232 points to close at over 300,000 units. And the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by 1,481 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 104 stocks, of which 40 advanced, 45 declined, and 19 traded firm. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Barita Investments Limited, and Blue Power Group Limited. Stocks declined for 1834 Investments Limited, CAC 2000 Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Variable Preference, Access Financial Services Limited, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited traded firm. The following companies represent the overall volume leaders: Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares and Dollar Financial Services Limited with over 2 million units, and finally JMMB Group Limited with over 1 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Clico Investment Fund was the volume leader with over 60,000 shares, followed by Calypso Macro Index Fund with 50 shares being traded. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Cave Shepherd and Company Limited was the volume leader with 298 shares, followed by Epley Caribbean Property Fund Value Fund with 225 shares, and Goddard Enterprises Limited with 80 shares. In market data for oil prices rose in volatile trade, but was still heading for a weekly decline as concerns over a potential recession-driven demand outweighed tight global supplies. Brent crude rose 35 cents to $105 a barrel, and West Texas Intermediate crude gained 19 cents to $102.92. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Denita Rodney.
In regional news, the West Indies Oil Company is the first Antiguan and Barbudan company to be listed on the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange. CEO of WIOC, Gregory Georges, says that this is a major milestone